Yeah. As you can see, that's what I'm eating.
How do you?
Very good. But every morning, as I'm going, it's very okay. It's no cost.
Affordable.
It's very affordable, you know. Going to the other side, you know, it's very costly, and I don't know, they will put both their AC and everything inside. So now here, you see fresh air. So you eat it, you know. It's very okay. I'm telling you.
The street food industry plays an important socio-economic role in Nigeria by meeting rural and urban dwellers' daily food demands.
There are a lot of different kinds of street food in this country, and masa is one of them, and it is an awesome food to eat. Wow. Nice, I'm telling you, so nice.
Open fire cooking is one of the aspects of street food, either from the woman frying akara with firewood by the roadside or meat roasting. I am here with Mr. Emmanuel, who is going to tell us a lot about meat roasting. Good day, Mr. Emmanuel.
Good day, madam. Good day, madam.
You have been in the business of meat roasting.
Yes.
How long have you been in this business?
Well, we've been in this business for close to 12 years now.
Wow, that's
Yes.
a long time. So how has it been? Has it been receptive?
Yes, it's been receptive. You know, you are in the north where I think meat is part of everyday food.
Yes.
So basically, you will be amazed that a lot of politicians come to buy this food, from House of Reps to Senate and all of that. A lot of people come to buy
You
this.
have been smiling to the fans. That's
Well, I will not exactly say so, because you know, in Abuja, all that you do also requires money. As you are making the money, you're also spending on other things. So, well, we bless God. I will just say we bless God. But definitely there are expenses.
okay. So how do you source for meat?
Well, the truth is that sourcing for meat has not been really easy, because we try to give you the best standard, you know, because you are dealing with people that understand hygiene, that are particular about their health. So at the end of the day, we have relationship with some farmers, you know, and so we let them know the specific kind of ram that we want, because a ram has to, you know, meet our standard before we collect from you. That's what we do.
How about the ingredients? Are they locally sourced?
Oh, they are locally sourced. Most of them from Kano, most of them from other northern parts. Yeah.
Okay, so this is your own way of promoting Nigerian products.
Exactly.
Okay,
That's what we do.
Wow, that's lovely. It's been lovely talking to you. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure having you. Thank you.
You like coming here to eat kose?
Yes.
How is the kose?
This is sweet, well. Okay. It's sweet. This is the first place where I start to do it. But because of the that I told you was very out, we are better, and then we beg that person no good before this people help out to start it there. The second problem where this woman has it now is the environmental people. And we where they are around there, it's follow this woman and help people, the seller can help us to eat here. You know, the hunger, all these people, mobile police, ordinary security, all these workers, they are supposed to get into a big fast. But it's only this woman here in the airport. And it's totally sweet. All these potatoes, if you eat, you want to eat all the plates.
I've been speaking with Mr. Emmanuel, a roadside food vendor. Up next is a feature on Bole. I know every Nigerian will want to watch this. Please stay tuned.
We sell roasted yam and plantain, popularly known as bole, and fish, roasted fish. That is what, and roasted. We do also beans. There is another plantain, we call it ngongo plantain. We had what we call ngongo plantain, ngongo yam. Ngongo plantain is when you mix the plantain together with the beans, you add uba and utazi. We call it ngongo. That is with goya in Igbo. That is the name of the packaging. That is what we sell here. We have all calibers of people coming here. We have the rich, we have the poor, the average. Everybody come here to eat. It's affordable.
I visit here regularly. Okay, yeah, every day. Yeah, either I take beans and bread or I take roasted yam. Yeah, enjoying the food here. Roasted plantain and fish. I discovered this place just of recent last week. And at times I have to eat food that is roasted because at times I'm tired of eating cooked food. Yeah, I prefer it normal rice because when I'm out, there's no need for me to eat the normal rice because that's what my wife used to cook at home.
Oh, the business is very good, and it is a local food that people eat. It's local, everything here is local, nothing like preservative. You can see the ingredient I mix to my order. So it's good food. It's a natural good food. But I am into delivery. That is our own part. We normally deliver. When you order, we now supervise them to deliver the food. So because people are getting tired, some people doesn't have the energy, the strength to come around. So now we bring out the strategy of delivering the food in their homes. So anywhere you just order, just contact us to come and give you the food. See how this place is. We're supposed to rent a shop, and this food of both middle and what people can eat, but because of we cannot rent a shop because I see this place, the shop is very high. That's the challenges that we have in this place. Really, people love this place, but because of it, we can't afford to rent a shop. But if we can have a better place, we will do it more better than this. Not stop. You can see I have an employee. I have people that work under us, so it's not one man business. So we cannot stop.
Roasted plantain and that yummy fish on my mind. The upward mobile or the upper class may not necessarily like to be seen eating on the side of the road. So I am happy that delivery services are available so they get to enjoy street food from the comfort of their homes, just like the ancient Chinese did. Well, if your pockets are deeper, you want something with an international sprinkling. Food trucks are popping up across the FCT, and we caught up with one of them.
Food Truck Central is basically the home for food trucks. Right now, we currently have 3 food trucks. Red Gourmet Kitchen, that's where we sell all our gourmet meals, wings, hamburgers, whatever your heart desires. And then we have the Barrel, The bar primarily serves drinks, cocktails, mocktails, smoothies, all of that. And then we have our pink truck, which is our newest addition to the family, where we sell treats, ice cream, churros, pancakes, crepes, and popsicles, and hot dogs and corn dogs as well. Of course, with any Nigerian business, of course we face challenges. Prices increasing in the market, which forces us to increase our pricing so that we can offer our customers the highest quality produce, whatever that may be. Our vegetables are always fresh. We ensure that we give our customers the best quality. Our age group ranges from 18 to people in their 40s and even in their 50s, especially because we have live band evenings on Saturdays, so usually that draws in an older crowd in their 40s, 50s, I would say, but usually from 18 to 40, that's the crowd we pull in. AMAC regulates us in terms of licensing, stuff like that, basic licensings.
We come to the end of today's edition on Window on Abuja. I do hope you had a nice time. I now know places where I can get fast street food. Well, I remain Pamela Zamfara. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Hours a day, 7 days a week. You can watch NTA International live on your TV, computer, iPad, tablet and phone. Log on to visiontv.co.uk and click on Entertainment, then NTA. You can also download the iOS or Android app on your mobile devices to watch NTA International on the go, anywhere in the world. NTA International. Your window to the world.
There's just something about speed and simplicity, but that speed and simplicity can be deceiving when you get behind the wheel. 30-year-old Emily sent this text message to her husband: "I love you and I will try to make you happy." Moments later, Emily was killed when her car slammed into the back of a tractor trailer. 18-year-old Mary was also texting when his car slammed into the back of a truck at 80 miles per hour. His final text was,
Driving and Facebooking is not safe. Haha.
"You probably think that this thing can happen to you. You are not alone. 55% of young adult drivers say that it is easy to text and drive. 3/4 of the same young adults feel that they are really good texting behind the wheels. Reality is, they are all delusional. That quick look at your phone takes longer than you think. 5 seconds are really long." Imagine you're driving on the road and someone suddenly covers your face for 5 quick seconds like this. You will probably feel very lucky if it didn't crash. But you chose to take your sight off the road just like that anytime you're sending or reading a text. Texting and driving is fast becoming the leading cause of teens' death on the road world over, surpassing even drinking and driving. But if you think dying in a car crash is the worst thing that happens to you, I tell you it is not. You can survive after you've killed someone else. Imagine spending the rest of your life knowing you killed someone just because of a text message. Now imagine going to jail just because of text message. Still think it will never happen to you? Still think you are the special one? There are so many that have been found guilty of texting while driving. But you can make a difference, just like so many young people have vowed not to text and drive. Leave your cell phone alone while driving. If you must send a text message, pull off the road into a parking lot or anywhere that is safe. No text is so important that it should cost your life or the life of someone else. You are not different. You are not special. You're just another accident waiting to happen if you do not desist from texting and driving. So, don't text and drive.
Although social media as a channel of communication is inherently harmless, it becomes harmful and damaging when used without discretion and thoughtfulness. Bad social media users spread rumors and fake news without verification. But good social media users stop, reflect, and verify information before sharing it. Be a good social media user. Stop the spread of fake news. Verify the authenticity of your source and use social media responsibly for a better Nigeria. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, in collaboration with the National Orientation Agency. Information is power. One's power. So feel powerful with the NTA News Model app, the one-stop information center. Real news at your fingertip. Be the first to report by uploading first-hand information on the U-Report link, and be the first to know by simply clicking on any of the links on the sidebar for headlines, domestic and foreign news, economy, security, politics, sports, and more. Stream live on your smartphone and tablets and stay connected. It's pretty easy. Simply download NTA News app from your Google Play Store and you're good to go. NTA News Model app. No access to real-time information.
President Buhari directs relevant agencies to enforce safety protocols for water transportation across the country.
NDLEA destroys 15-hectare cannabis farm in Ogun State.
They will always lose. So if they continue, we're after them.
Fire destroys goods worth millions of naira in building at Balogo Market in Lagos.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss the 2023 appropriation bill of the federal government.
A budget proposal of 20.51 trillion naira for the year 2023 was laid Friday before the National Assembly by President Muhammadu Buhari. Now that happened to be the 8th and last budget presentation as he is going to make as president to the National Assembly.
Of course, Jumai, and that implies that later on next year we shall be having a new president who will present the budget proposals before the National Assembly. However, one legacy of President Muhammadu Buhari, for whoever his successor will be, is returning the budget to the January to December cycle. And this, of course, has happened consistently in recent years.
Indeed, Kingsley, and economic experts consider the return to the January-December budget cycle as a remarkable feat by the Buhari administration, especially as it gives everyone the propensity and leverage for financial planning, and thanks to cordial relationship between the legislature and executive within the last 3 years.
Well, that's right, Jumai. Now, although that cordiality has sometimes been construed as the National Assembly being a rubber stamp, this view has been expressed in some quarters. But others argue that it has turned out to be of national advantage. This is because usually the kind of cantankerous relationship between the legislature and the executive branches of government over the appropriation bill, those cantankerous relationships have been smoothed to a considerable extent. Now, the 2023 appropriation bill of 20.51 trillion naira has been christened the budget of fiscal consolidation and transition, and it reflects an increase of 390 billion naira from the 19.76 trillion projected in the 2023-2025 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper, which both chambers of the National Assembly have already passed. Now, the budget size is about 3 trillion naira higher than that of the outgoing year, 2022.
Indeed, Kingsley, based on their relationship, it's like they gave each other a tap on the back on that day, working out a cordial relationship that would help in transiting Nigeria from this government to the other. And out of the 20.51 trillion naira, 8.27 trillion was proposed as non-debt recurrent cost. 6.31 trillion was earmarked for debt servicing and 5.35 trillion for capital expenditure, including the capital component of statutory transfers, while 4.99 trillion was earmarked for personal cost.
Well, the 2023 budget proposal is predicated on an oil price benchmark of $70 per barrel and daily oil production estimates of about 1.69 million barrels per day. Now, we also have an exchange rate of 435 naira, 57 kobo per US dollar, and a projected GDP growth of 3.75%, as well as an inflation rate of 17.16%. Now, 1.1 trillion naira is for overheads, and over 700 billion naira has been earmarked for statutory transfers, with a sinking fund of nearly 250 billion naira earmarked to retire certain maturing bonds.
Now, President Buhari said the expenditure policy of the government in the year 2023 was designed to achieve the strategic objectives of the National Development Plan 2021 to 2025, such as microeconomic stability, human development, food security, improved business environment, energy sufficiency, improving transport infrastructure, and promoting industrialization.
The President, however, cautioned relevant committees of the National Assembly to desist from passing budgets for government-owned enterprises, which he says are usually at variance with the budgets he has sanctioned. Now, this, according to the President, is against the rules and must stop.
While he also cautioned against budget padding, which was a college that became popular after the first budget presentation of this administration several years back. The president says he won't be happy if there are insertions to the budget proposals when the bill is returned to him. But is that possible, Kingsley?
Well, that's a big question. We've had debates over this over the years, especially with the Fourth Republic, as to the exact role of the National Assembly. Some argue that their role certainly is not merely to receive the budgetary proposals or the appropriation proposals, but to interrogate it and then not just be a mere rubber stamp to say we approve what you have done. So these are some of the issues that have often come up. We have seen budgets slightly higher or manifestly more than what the executive arm of government had earlier proposed. Now, there's hardly any time the overall budget proposal is slashed to less than what the executive arm envisages. But with the presentation of the 2023 appropriation bill by President Muhammadu Buhari, it's now up to the National Assembly to, of course, consider the various estimates, and then the Nigerians will await what the final outcome will be. That's our focus on our conversation segment on Good Morning Nigeria today. Welcome to the program. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I am Jimma Yusuf. We'll have our complimentary segments. We'll have guests who will interrogate this topic and give us, a possible way to understand the budget. Happy Eid al-Maulud holiday to you out there. Well, right now we have Comfort in the studio with our morning news. Hello, Comfort. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, Jumai and Kingsley. Good morning, Nigerians. President Muhammadu Buhari has directed relevant agencies of government to check and enforce the safety protocols of ferries to ensure accidents are avoided in the future. The president said this while expressing sadness over the boat accident in Anambra State, in which dozens of people were killed. The boat, reportedly carrying 85 persons, capsized following rising floods in Ovaru area of the state, with a death toll of 76 persons. Following the tragedy, the Nigerian Inland Waterways Authority, NIWA, and the National Emergency Management Agency have embarked on rescue and recovery missions. And as efforts are being made to resolve the dilemma of travelers along the Lokoja, Koton-Karfe, Abuja highway, boat transportation is the only way out for stranded commuters on this axis, even though many travelers have phobia for water.
Before we know they go Koto, but now we don't enter Koto. If you don't carry from KRC here, anybody will carry from KRC and Koto direct.
It's more expensive than normally we do enter 2,000 naira, but now we spend up to 5,000 to be able to cross to reach Lokoja to Koto before we cannot take motor to Abuja.
The Abuja to Kaduna train service, suspended for about 7 months due to terrorist attacks, will resume operations soon. Minister of Transportation Mazu Jaji Sambo gave the indication after the release of the remaining 23 kidnapped victims. While briefing the media in Abuja, the minister stated that no ransom was paid for their release.
We're going to resume very soon. So we have a short-term and a long-term plan. The short-term measures will be put in place very, very quickly to enable rail services commence. And beyond a period of 3 months, we will have put in place a sustainable plan that will ensure that our rail lines are safe and secure.
Operatives of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency NDLEA Ogun State Command have arrested 21 suspects and destroyed 15 hectares of cannabis farm worth millions of naira at Imoba area, J3 in Ijebu East local government area of Ogun State. The farm was discovered through intelligence gathering by the command.
And it's a lot of loss. So long as NDL is following them, they continue to lose their economy.
We waited till this time for them to know that what they're doing is not right.
Goods worth millions of naira have been destroyed by fire in a building on Martin Street, Balogun Markets in Lagos on Sunday. It was reported that the fire raged for several hours before it was put under control by firefighters and other emergency responders.
The good thing there is that there is no casualty. The terrain is very, very difficult. There are lots of things that have impeded the access of the fire service that are trying to put out the fire.
In line with the directive of the Inspector General Police for manhunt of escapees of the Kuje Correctional Center, Kano State Command of the Nigerian Police Force has arrested one of the escapees, Abubakar Muhammad Sadiq, who has since been handed over to the Nigerian Correctional Service Kano for onward return to the Kuje Correctional Facility.
The suspect confessed that he was among those that escaped from the lawful custody at Kuje Correctional Center. With this, we must use this medium to appreciate and thank the good people of Kano State.
Abubakar Sadiq is now in our custody, and all necessary arrangement has been making to repatriate him back to his original habitat, that is Median Security Custodial Center, Kuje.
Away from that, President Muhammadu Buhari will on Monday, October 10th, attend the investiture ceremony of Muhammad Idris Deby Itno as president of the transitional team in Republic of Chad for 2 years. The function, which will hold at the capital of N'Djamena, will further accentuate negotiations on peaceful and harmonious return to democratic process in the country, following the passing of the former president Idris Deby in April 2021. President Buhari will return to Nigeria after the function. That's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Jume and Kinsley after this break.
Wake up the champion in your child. Give them energy to go further. Milo Active Go and the natural goodness of malt, milk, and cocoa helps wake up the champion in your child.
This blessing be yours, forever complete, a calm and peaceful sleep.
Removes mosquitoes so you can sleep a calm and peaceful sleep Good night, Electric.
What is happening? Your eyes are red. Your hand is a machete and a gun. See, I am hungry and I can't even contain it. See, oh my guy, calm down, calm down. See, I have planned to go and destroy these people's businesses in the city. I have to retaliate for what they've done at our place. They cannot eat their cake and have it now, never. If you destroy their business here and they destroy that of those close to you over there, especially that your brother who sends you steady cash, how would you survive? Would your dreams be on hold? See, what you're saying is correct, but I'm still angry. The best way is to embrace peace. With peace and unity.
My people, let us embrace peace and unity. Let's learn to live as brothers and sisters for a progressive, prosperous nation. This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Esther, you're late again. Esther?
She's a wandering light in the darkness. She's beautiful. She's a superstar. Never let her mama down. She's beautiful. She know the fresh. She know the ever got it for her.
No phones at the table, please. Esther. I love you too.
Don't forget I'll pick your phone.
Airtel, the smartphone network. As the 2023 elections draw near, remember, evil prospers when good men and women only wish for peace, but never take a step to make peaceful elections happen. Are you a father? Are you a mother? What are you saying to your children as elections approach? Have you warned them not to let themselves be used to cause violence? Have you explained to them what the consequences of electoral violence might be? Do your part to make peaceful elections happen. Talk to your children. Protect them from unscrupulous politicians who want to put them in harm's way, while their own children are comfortable at home, within and outside the country. Let's join hands to make 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency, NOAA.
The counsel of our fathers.
I believe we have fought one civil war too many in this country. So those who experience it will run away from it.
Nigerian youth, let's build our nation together.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Next on the program is Business News with Comfort Ahmadu.
Beginning to galvanize and cultivate the base of the export pyramid.
There has been an appreciable growth and development in Nigerian's non-oil export, with the strategic push by the Nigerian Export Promotion Council to transform the sector. However, there is a snag. It is the high rate of export rejects of some agricultural produce from Nigeria in the international markets due to quality requirements and certification from accredited authorities, especially with small and medium enterprises. But the cheering news is all that is changing.
We're not where we used to be entirely. We've gotten better. Production has expanded. Now we have certification.
Recently, I received a demand which they said anything we can produce, we have, they will buy it up, like the black sesame to them. And the demand is growing. So we should just work on modalities like policies and soften hands on some of the bottlenecks.
The initiative to increase financing for exporters in Nigeria through key financial institutions in the country is geared towards enhancing the financial base for MSMEs and exporters to promote non-oil export long term.
Thank you very much, Comfort Ahmadu, for the business package. And Good Morning Nigeria. Up next is Newspaper Review.
Well, I have a few papers here to read out and analyze for you this morning, and I'll begin with the Daily Trust newspaper. And just below the masthead, we have 2023 PDP flags of presidential campaign in Uyo today. You find details on page 28. Obajana standoff, Dangote to approach court as Kogi moves to recover company. You find the details on page 19. Anambra boat accident, 16 bodies recovered as President Buhari orders rescue operations. Find details on page 5. And at the side piece of the illustration you see there, NNPP will defeat APC PDP in presidential poll. As coming from the presidential candidate of the NNPP, Rabiu Musa Konkoso. You find details on page 28. Non-disclosure of lifted crude. Court freezes 3 oil and gas firms' accounts. Details on page 21. How flood submerged Olam's 4,400 hectares of rice in Nasarawa State. Details on page 25. And you see the picture illustration of indicating how 62 airlines went moribund since 1960. With rider, multiple charges, harsh business environment responsible as coming from the operators, and the need for alternative funding. Kingsley.
All right. We also have the Daily Sun newspaper. The Daily Sun newspaper, let's go straight to the lead story, which is on politics, and it has a kicker: 2023 presidency. Dogara, Babachir, and Muslim leaders adopt consensus candidate. That's the lead story for the Daily Sun newspaper. Idel Malud, Gwanye, Sanwo-Olu, Umahi, Abaf Benin, and others felicitate with Muslims. That's on page 26. NAFDAC warns against 4 deadly cough syrups in circulation. Dead clergy's wife, 2 children, and 2 sisters found dead in Enugu. Uyo Agog as Atiku flags off campaigns amid reconciliation with Wike and allies. NDLEA intercepts 2.4 million tramadol at Lagos Airport. And the second list story is also on politics. APC to release amended campaign council list this week. PCC demands NWC's financial support for Tinubu. PCC stands for Presidential Campaign Council. And then Kogi students and Dangote shareholders differ on developments at Obajana cement factory. You have details of that story on page 26. So those are the headlines that we have this morning. Do you mind?
Yeah, those are the headlines we have this morning. One particular thing of interest in the paper you just read is the drug, the cough syrup that most people buy and use it as drugs. Actually take it, sleep throughout the day, and I think government is really trying to curb the infiltration of this harmful cough syrups to Nigeria, and our youth going gaga on it. What do you think?
Well, this is, there was a time, and I think we had at least multiple conversations on that, on Good Morning Nigeria, which had to do with the abuse of cough syrups. Those were legitimate, legal, clean cough syrups, but it's just that it was being abused, especially the cough syrup with the codeine base. And Kano was said to be if you like, the headquarters of the consumption of cough syrups. At some point, it was reported when we had the conversation on Good Morning Nigeria that they were abusing about up to 1 million bottles of cough syrups a day in Kano. But this is not the same as drug abuse. This has to do with tainted or contaminated cough syrups for children. And the story is, of course, coming out of the Gambia, where a writer to the headline on page 3 says that 63 children are dead already from the cough syrups. Now, the cough syrups are said to come from India, I believe, and the names of the cough syrups are stated there. One is oral solution, the cough Maxaline, and Markov baby cough syrup, and Maghrib and cold syrup. So for those, of course, it's a useful advice. I would think that this kind of publication or kind of stories should be sustained, and warnings, of course, placed on the front pages of newspapers, as well as online media outlets, so that parents are appropriately advised and even warned not to touch any of these cough syrups. And Nigerians who are used to importing any and everything from all corners of the globe, should they themselves also now be advised as to the toxic cough syrup that is now in the market. It has already killed, we understand, 63 children in the Gambia, and to be forewarned is to be forearmed, and every man ordinarily ought therefore to be careful. I recall some years ago, we had some infant solution as well. It was called My Pikin.
I remember.
My Pikin caused quite some devastating consequence in Lagos, in and around the Lagos area, and I think there was some prosecution around that. So that is useful advice coming from NAFDAC. You have deadly baby cough syrups in the Gambia, and we do not know whether those syrups will find their way or could find their way are already in the Nigerian market, but whoever cites any of those cough syrups, the names are listed on page 3 according to the statement issued by NAFDAC, that you should be adequately advised. Some of the signs of the toxic effects of the syrups are as follows. I just take them according to the paper here. Abdominal pain, vomiting, diarrhea, inability to pass urine, headache, altered mental state, and acute kidney injury, which may lead to death. So the symptoms: abdominal pain, vomiting, diarrhea, inability to pass urine, headache, and altered mental state, and acute kidney injury.
That's quite alarming, actually.
It's absolutely.
And coming from children who cannot speak at times, and tell you what's really going on with them.
It's a pediatric alarm. There's no question about it, and I think parents, healthcare workers, pharmacists, and all that, they should, of course, be on the lookout for all of this. There's also the related story of another set of tramadol drugs being seized in Lagos. They said NDLEA intercepts 2.4 million tramadol at Lagos Airport. I think it must have been last week or the week before. There was also a story of some millions of tablets of tramadol being seized at what was described as a mansion. It didn't look like a mansion anyway. It probably looked like a block of flats somewhere at VGC, that's Victoria Garden City, the Lekki Peninsula. Now, you just have to ask yourself this question. You keep hearing millions of tramadol tablets, millions of this, millions of that. Well, just what is the business of this, of the importers of these items? Is Nigeria awash in drugs, or is the drug demand so high in the country that at some? No, this is a rhetorical question I'm asking, because we've had conversations around the drug demand reduction as one of the ways of dealing with the issues. That you keep having 2-point-something million. And you don't want 2.4 million. I don't know how a tramadol tablet looks like, or how many somebody needs to take to be high, or how many you need to take to continue to be.
Actually, tramadol it's a medicine for bone problem. If you have bone problem, it's prescribed in the hospital. But when you take too much, you end up spending the whole day sleeping and just being drugged up. But I think Nigeria too, it's like a passage for these drugs to pass to other neighboring countries, Nigeria. But it's quite alarming. The more they arrest, the more they bring it in.
Absolutely. And this one is tramadol is different from Umpiri, I believe. Umpiri is the ice, the one that is ice. They take that. We had a discussion around that also on Good Morning Nigeria sometime at the point.
Yes.
And they take it, and the abusers just go gaga. They just go gaga.
I wonder when they enjoy being in a state of drunkenness throughout the
sort of
day.
been high. So, but it's kudos to the NDLA that they keep making these arrests and then, of course, destroying the drugs as they get there. But as we also advised, they have to be more scientific ways of incinerating these drugs. I cited the other day that it was Madabo and I, of course, who were on set when we were discussing the drugs that they seized, and then they made a bonfire of it with tires polluting the environment. There are still plants around Lagos, for instance, where you can use a furnace. You use a furnace to
that's how it's done in developed countries.
Incinerate it, and then, of course, get the person. But more importantly, those who are behind it, take them in and put them behind bars. And I'm sure that over the weekend, Nigerians who, of course, are on the social media would have received a number of videos relating to the discoveries as to how Nigeria's crude oil has been siphoned over the past 9 years. You had illegal pipelines leading directly to the sea, and this is a big story, and it's something, of course, that we have to focus on. But one comment to make almost immediately, and this is something that we also ought to ask ourselves as a country: why do we do this to ourselves? Why do we do this to ourselves? Now, because when you look at the consequence, a few criminal elements might say, "Oh, they are a business XYZ and they are making their profit and taking the money offshore." But look at the consequence.
Environmental degradation.
Environmental. That's fine. But let's even look at the monetary returns. The country is shortchanged. We don't have enough foreign reserves, and when there is pressure on the foreign reserves, you have pressure also on the value of the naira, and inflationary pressure also comes on. The government is struggling, looking for resources to finance a wide variety of projects. Government has to go borrowing. In the meantime, you just have these criminal elements for 9 years taking away our resources. There is probably, I imagine, no country in the world that is as wantonly raped
like Nigeria,
and by its own citizens in collusion with foreigners. And I think that there ought to be some very harsh lessons taught from incidents of this nature. When you look at those videos, you watch them from beginning to end. I mean, some comments were being made when Tompolo was awarded the contract.
Yes.
Oh, they said, why not? This is why, sometimes before one gets into commentaries on issues, it is useful to have an understanding of the facts. You don't know who is driving the argument against Tompolo. There is a big fine, by Tompolo and his company and his associates. So that's a huge story, and as I said, it's something that will engage our attention. The other story you read, Jumai, which is the lead, we're going to have to stop the newspaper review shortly, which is the lead on the Daily Trust. The number of airlines says how 62 airlines went moribund since 1960. That is to say, in 62 years, you've had one airline going bust. We do know that, of course, the first private airline in Nigeria arrived before Nigeria's independence, and that's Aero Contractors. And then the first scheduled private airline flight, commercial flight, was Okada. Okada came, which is where you got the name from. But one of the major problems that have been cited there, including that, has to do with corporate governance.
Yes, multiple charges, hard business.
Those are multiple charges, those are regulatory, corporate governance. Most of these airlines were set up as virtually one-man businesses, and you can't, the airline business, unless you are running a small charter service, if you want to be in regular scheduled commercial operations, your corporate governance must be right. In other words, you also must be able to admit your other shareholders, not to say, Jumai, you own your airline, Kingsley Aviation Limited, Jumai Executive Services, and so on and so forth. So I think that that's one lesson that we haven't learned. We have not essentially imbibe the spirit of corporatization in our airline operation. You still see them around. Some of them are struggling here and there, and then the owner will direct which flight will go somewhere, another one will direct which one will not go somewhere. And so you don't make the right business decisions. And therefore, for an airline business that is very competitive and of course very costly and highly regulated.
And folds up lots of employment lost there.
It will actually is.
Well, that's the people.
Although we should also note though that ADC, Aviation Development Company, was a good airline. And it was ruined, of course, by the crash of 1996.
Well, we're going to float our own carrier very soon.
I'm not to that business.
Well, we'll take a break right now. When we return, our conversation will begin. Do stay.
Invitation to the inauguration of APC Women's Presidential Campaign Team. The Tinubu Shatima Women's Presidential Campaign Team wishes to announce the formal inauguration of members of its various committees, scheduled as follows. Date: Monday, 10th October 2022. Time: 10:30 a.m. Venue: The Dome, Banquet Hall, Presidential Villa, Abuja. Guests to be seated by 9 a.m. Signed, Organizing Committee.
Wake up the champion in your child. Give them energy to go further. Milo Active Go and the natural goodness of malt, milk, and cocoa helps wake up the champion in your child. Milo.
We are all Nigerians. Against all odds, we shall and must remain united. We may have our challenges, our problems, and setbacks. However, together we shall overcome them all. What does it break us shall make us stronger. This is the mindset that shall bring peace, progress, and prosperity to our beloved country. Do not let tribal and religious sentiments govern how you think, act, or feel. Don't be influenced by those who want to destroy our precious national unity. Everybody who's a Nigerian is your brother and your sister. This is the mindset of the new Nigeria. It is also the mindset that we must all adopt. Let us support each other in creating the Nigeria of our dreams. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
The center is purposely established in order to provide these services that are examinations, medical examinations, and investigations that we are not provided for in Kano as well as the entire Northwest region. It's equipped with modern technological equipment in terms of radiological services. We have MRI 1.5 Tesla, we have digital X-ray as well as 4D ultrasound equipment. The importance of the center cannot be overemphasized. Just within 1 year, the center attended to thousands and numerous patients as well as medical examinations. NKDC is established in order also to provide these healthcare facilities as a discounted price.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
You're welcome back, and as a prompt for our conversation, which is on the 2023 Appropriation Bill, here's a background report by State House correspondent Adam Osombo.
It was not only historic, but simply an emotional sight to behold as President Muhammadu Buhari laid the 2023 Appropriations Bill before a joint session of the National Assembly for the last time as Commander-in-Chief and leader of democratic Nigeria. The 2023 budget, amongst others, reflects the serious challenges facing Nigeria, key reforms necessary towards addressing them, and the imperatives to achieving higher, more inclusive, diversified, and sustained growth. The 20.51 trillion naira budget is therefore made up of 5.35 trillion naira capital expenditure, 8.27 trillion naira non-debt recurrent cost, 4.99 trillion naira personnel cost, 6.31 trillion naira debt service, 1.11 trillion naira overhead cost, and 744.1 billion naira statutory transfers. And in line with the approved 2023 to 2025 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper, the budget is predicated on an oil price benchmark of $70 per barrel, daily oil production estimate of 1.69 million barrels per day, exchange rate of 435 naira 57 kobo per dollar, a projected GDP growth rate of 3.75%, as well as inflation rate of 17.16%.
I would like to implore the leadership of the National Assembly to ensure that the budget I laid here today, which includes those of the government-owned enterprise, be returned to the presidency when passed. The current practice, where some committees of the National Assembly purport to pass budgets for government-owned enterprises, which are at variance with the budgets sanctioned by me, and communicate such directly to the MDAs, is against the rules and needs stop, please.
Noting with dismay the crisis that has paralyzed activities in Nigeria's public universities, the president said he expects from the staff better appreciation of the current state of affairs in the country.
The determined effort to resolve the issue, we have provided a total of 470 billion naira in the 2023 budget from our constrained resources for revitalization and several enhancements in the tertiary institutions.
President Buhari also promised sustained efforts at boosting food production and distribution towards bringing down the high food prices, positioning the manufacturing sector to generate more foreign exchange, as well as securing lives, property, and investments across Nigeria. The 2023 budget proposal, the president said, is a product of interagency collaboration, extensive stakeholder consultations, and productive engagements. He therefore appreciated the media, the organized private sector, civil society organizations, and the nation's development partners for their contributions.
And to discuss the topic, let me introduce first here in this Abuja studio Professor Uche Owaleke. A regular on Good Morning Nigeria, is a professor of capital market at the Nasarawa State University, Kefi, and president capital market academics in Nigeria. It's a pleasure to have you join us.
Yeah, thank you, Jumai. Good morning, Nigeria. Happy Idel Malud.
Thank you so much. And from our Benin studio, we're being joined by Professor Mike Obadan. He's the professor of economics and member CBN Monetary Policy Committee. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Jumai. It's my great pleasure to be with you this morning. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, Prof. Michael Obadan, thank you. And also from our Kaduna Network Center, we have another regular guest on the program. That's Shuaibu Idris, as Managing Director and CEO of Timeline Consults. Shuaibu Idris, we're glad to have you this morning.
Kingsley, good morning and good morning, Nigerians. Let me seize the opportunity to wish all of us a happy independence anniversary and Eid al-Mawlud to our Muslim brothers.
And from our Zoom connection in Enugu, we also have another regular on the program. That's Professor Ken Ife. He's an economic policy analyst. Professor Ken Ife, we're glad to have you.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigeria. Happy Salah.
All right. Well, gentlemen, it's once again, it's our delight to have you at least take off from the holiday season to be our guests on Good Morning Nigeria today. And before we begin to interrogate relevant aspects of the 2023 appropriation bill, let me just ask this question. Do we ever take time off to assess any preceding budget so as to know what we are getting into in the following year? In other words, for instance, have we had any assessment of the 2022 Appropriation Act? Before the 2022 Appropriation Act, did we have any evaluation of 2021 Appropriation Act? And if so, what should be the guideposts before we start dwelling on a new deal altogether? Let's begin with Professor Uche Owaleke right here in our studios. Prof.
Yeah, thanks, Kinsella, once again. I think we do. Even the Fiscal Responsibility Act makes provision for that. It says that the budget implementation reports ought to be out 30 days after the end of each quarter, that there should be a quarterly release of implementation reports. But of course, that would appear to be unrealistic. And what we tend to find is that they are usually in arrears. As we speak, if you go to the website of the Budget Office, what you find is the second quarter of 2022 implementation report. So we've had that of first quarter and second quarter. And if you also listen to the budget speech, it's also on the basis of that the president started by reviewing the 2022 budget performance. Of course, where he talked about the revenue challenges. For example, the president said that between January and July, that the government revenue was met only 63% of prorated targets. Okay, so and that he also said that between that period we have paid as much as 1.59 trillion by way of oil subsidy. He also talked about the capital spend, what has been allocated to NDAs by way of capital expenditure, I think about 1.4 trillion over the same period. So to answer your question, Kinsley, yes, there's usually a review of the performance of the current year's budget, because that is what now leads the government into preparing that of the next budget for the next year. So a review is usually done.
Well, thanks. I know that you cannot have a review almost immediately at the end of a quarter.
That's why I said it's
But this is usually in arrears, and the issue then is the inputs into the review. Who does the review? And that's why I would like Professor Michael Badan himself to also weigh in on this. Professor Michael Badan, how useful is our review of budget performance of an outgoing year as therefore as an advisory for the incoming appropriation?
Thank you very much, Kinsley. I think normally such reviews ought to be very useful, both for the information of the public and also as input into public policy making in relation to a new budget that is being formulated. But like Professor Uwaleke has rightly pointed out, and you, Kinsley, also confirmed, most of the time the reports from the budget office of the federation or the ministry entirely tend to be in arrears, and very importantly, not many people get to know of the reviews. Perhaps it's put on the internet, and I know hard copies used to be produced, but the distribution is very limited. And so yes, such reviews are available to government officials for the purpose of formulating a new budget, or even as inputs into the Mr. President's budget statement. But most of the time, very many Nigerians are not aware of such reports. Perhaps during the early inputs into a new budget formulation, the stakeholders invited to contribute to such discussions probably have access to those reports. I myself have not seen any copy this year, maybe because I didn't seem to show interest. If I wanted, probably I will check the internet and find one. But I will advise that going forward, the Ministry of Finance, Budget, National Planning should endeavor to devise ways to make such reports, budget review reports, widely available to the generality of the public.
Thank you, Professor Obada. Let me join Shaibu Idris now in Kaduna. We're opening the conversation with, the review of preceding budget and how it can, help in the incoming budget that was presented by President Muhammadu Buhari. Some say it is not timely enough, and some say that it should be open to public purview. But don't you think that the public itself are really not interested in knowing how the budget goes?
Yeah, Jumai, once again, good morning. I think the issue is not whether the public are interested or not. The issue, simply put, is how is the analysis done on the implementation or otherwise of previous budget. In accounting parlance, we have what we call variance analysis. Variance analysis is done to interrogate, with a view to interrogating what were the assumptions underlining a budget or a program. What did we set out to achieve? What did we achieve? How were we able to achieve what we achieved? And if there are negative variances, why were there those negative variances? What were the factors that made us not to achieve our target? In the case of, for example, 2021 budget, Mr. President did say we set out to achieve X amount of revenue, and what we got was 63%. Mr. President kept quiet there. What we expected in terms of the variance analysis, in terms of review of the budget, was what went wrong. Were the assumptions by the budget office wrong? And if they were, why were they wrong? Didn't we perceive something? Was there a hurricane? Was there a natural disaster, like the lawyers will say, a force majeure? Those are the kind of analysis that should underpin, historical performance. Generally, this country, until very recently, we've not had an M&E, a monitoring and evaluation unit on projects in government. Recently, there is a bit of an attempt to have that unit so that we review each and every project. I think it is important that, yes, annually we should be interrogating underlying assumptions. What were the inputs, what were the output, and what are the impact of such output, and are we achieving our target or not? What do we need to change? I believe if we don't do so, we will not be able to be building a future for a better country that we hope to all live in.
Shaibu Idris, thank you very much there also for your comment. Let's hear from Professor Kenife. Professor Kenife, how well are we utilizing our rigorous review of the preceding year's budget to inform what we then intend to do going forward?
Well, first of all, at 50% score, you couldn't say anything worse than it's done what it could. It's at 50%. That's what it should. 50% of the year, 50% of the budget spent. But bear in mind that last year's budget, 2021, was extended to March and further extended to June. So all those expenditures were, especially the capital side, were all continued to be expended up until June. And then now this was also, 2022 was concurrent. So it could have been higher. But having said that, if you decompose that expenditure, you will see that, first of all, we have on our budget deficit was still somewhere around 63%. So we still have a longer way to go on bringing down the budget deficit. But if you look at the disaggregation between capital, the balance of capital and recurrent, you will see that there is always 100% on recurrent, because priorities are pay salaries 100%, pay pension 100%, make sure security gets what they want. So by the time you come, very low at the pecking order is capital expenditure. So you can see that capital expenditure doesn't always keep pace with all the other expenditure. That's why it releases at the only 1.4% 8 trillion. So even as you come to December, you will still find 100% expenditure on all those recurrent items and debt service items. But then capital is what is always lagging behind. And that's why you keep getting extension to March of the next year and extension possibly to June. So I think on balance, they done what they could, and then we could see a much better performance going forward.
I'm going to stay with you briefly. The budget is coming at a time of local and global challenges, and but still, you know, in this quarter we have a 3.5 in GDP growth. Would you say that the transition from January to December budget has sort of impacted significantly on our budget cycle? And don't you think that the Nigerian economy is quite resilient here?
Well, the thing is that extension of spend from January to March and to June is actually to beef up capital expenditure and create more jobs, because that is really where the jobs lie, the opportunity to energize the economy. So if you don't extend those, you would have written off the capital component of the budget, and the opportunities to grow the economy would diminish. So and this is one part of the reason why we are, plus of course the robust monetary policy intervention. That's why we are still keeping up with growth, even though we have extremely adverse circumstances around all the other items of expenditure. Inflation is very, very high and all of that, but this is very, very important that they continue to extend that capital spend to put more pressure on growth.
All right, Professor Culinary, thank you very much. Now let's of course get into budget proper for 2023. Professor Uche Waloke, what do you think? The numbers are out there. We have the number of assumptions. We also have projections. And of course, the size of the budget, 20.5 trillion naira.
Thank you very much, Kinsley. Well, two quick submissions here. The first is to say that I think the benchmarks are realistic, because I've read some arguments, saying that they're not. I think they're largely, are. If you take the oil price benchmark, for example, $70 per barrel, and you consider the trend in the oil price, you consider projections by energy, international energy agencies, you would come to the conclusion that $70 per barrel is realistic. Recall that we used $73 last year. And some people, had said, why not we use 73 or something higher than 70? But of course, we also know that the international oil market is quite volatile. And when you're preparing a budget of this nature, amid the volatility, that there is need to be conservative and there is need to, play safe. So $70 per barrel, in my view, is in order. The other aspect also has to do with the production. 1.69 million barrels per day, in my view too, is realistic, because last year we used 1.6. Yes, even though one could argue we've not been able to meet that target, but again we know why. Unlike oil price, where we have no control at all, that of production, to a large extent, we have control. Once we know the OPEC quota, okay, we should be able to meet that OPEC quota, reining in, for example, issues like oil theft. And listening to the president in the budget speech, he has said that the NNPC, was doing something about the issue of oil theft and pipeline vandalism. So to that extent, one would say the 1.69 million barrels per day, is realistic. If you take the exchange rate, for example, 435.57, okay, it has already provided for the depreciation of the naira, by next year. But again, some of the commentaries I've also read, of the view that there should have been the naira should have been further depreciated. But again, I don't think so, because that will be saying that some of the efforts the central bank, is currently making, particularly with respect to the RT200, to bring in more dollars in the economy next year, would come to naught. So I think all those were taken into cognizance. The issue of GDP growth rate, 3.75%. Again, if you look at the estimates by IMF, World Bank, and some others, is not way well ahead of those projections. So they're just within range. Okay, but the only thing I see, the two major risks I see to the budgets, 2023 budget, are one, the issue of the fact that there's an assumption that oil subsidy will go by July. So oil subsidy will stay till June and then go by July. So that assumption is what I see as one of the challenges, because the new administration may not summon the political will to remove that oil subsidy immediately it is coming in, because it may say it needs some time to settle down, and that will of course mean that there will be a lot of off-budget spending in 2023 arising from the subsidy itself, and number two, arising from the fact that next year we are conducting election. The conduct of that election, particularly if it results in a runoff, may also lead us to some off-budget spending. So for me, these are the risks I see in that budget, which is also why I think that of all the benchmarks, the inflation rate of 17.16 may not crystallize, and that's because once you remove subsidy in July, it will automatically translate to higher domestic prices. So inflation rate of 17.16 it doesn't seem to me realistic on the basis of that assumption. That's the first submission I'm making. The other submission I'm making by way of opening statement too is to say that one has noticed some positive reforms in the budgeting process in Nigeria in a couple of years. One of which is the fact that now finance bill usually sent alongside the appropriation bill, which is fine. The second thing is that the budget of the 66 government-owned enterprises now are integrated into the national budget. So the 20.5 trillion you find contains about 2.42 trillion of government enterprise spending, unlike before when they were not part of that. And the third positive thing I also see is that now the budget also tends to lean more towards non-oil revenue, unlike previously. If you look at the total revenue the government is expecting to get, FGE revenue, about 9 trillion. Only 2 trillion of that is for oil. The rest, non-oil. And of course, finally, very importantly, the fact that, again, for some years now, the appropriation bill has been submitted in good time, relatively in good time. Okay, we have seen what has happened in the past, before now, when it was usually submitted late, and this is despite the fact that Section 81 of the Constitution allows the president to submit this appropriation bill anytime in the year before the next financial year. So the president could have as well submitted it on 30th of December, but he has, for some time now, it's been submitted in time, allowing the National Assembly enough time to interrogate the budget. So we need to sustain this tradition. We need to entrench that tradition, which is why, I'm of the view that there is need for us to have a budget law. I have been saying it. We need a budget law to ensure that these traditions are sustained, such that we have in the law will now specify the timelines for submission. The Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2007, Section 11, only talks about the MTEF. MTEF being submitted 4 months. So it's silent on the budget. So right now, as we speak, our budgeting process is regulated by pieces of legislation. You have Section 81 of the Constitution, you have Section 59 of the Constitution, you have Section 11 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act, and so on and so forth. But Barrister Kinsel will agree with me that all those, we need a law, a budget law, that specifies guidelines that addresses each of the 4 stages of the budgeting process. That's where we are sure that next administration will not come and then go back to the era of a late submission of budget with all its attendant consequences. Fiscal uncertainties that most times will result to investors pulling back, lack of investment and confidence in the economy. Thank you.
All right, Professor Warepe, thank you. The issue you raised about law is something that we can interrogate subsequently, because the appropriation itself is a law. It's an act of the National Assembly.
Budget law.
I know you're talking about process and procedure.
You have the U.S. Congressional Law of U.S. Congressional Act of 1974, something akin to that.
A specific law.
Yes, that regulates the budgetary process.
So that's why I said that process and procedure. That's right. Thanks, Professor Michael Badan. Let's also have your take on some of the assumptions around the appropriation bill for 2023. Crude oil production 1.69. This year, we've been doing mainly, from some of the reports that I've read, we've been doing less than 1.3 million barrels per day. When 2022 budget was proposed, nobody knew that there was going to be some conflict between Russia and Ukraine. And suddenly, the prices of oil, of crude oil, have been way out of control, but we have also not been able to meet our quota. But let's have your take regardless, Professor Michael Badan.
Thank you very much, Kingsley. But permit me to first, say something briefly on the question posed by Jumai to Professor Waleke concerning whether the budget calendar had an impact on the growth achieved first, second quarters of this year. I would hesitate to say yes, because there are fundamental factors that drive growth and which actually resulted in the improved growth performance this year from 3.11% to 3.54%. And the good performance, relatively good performance, is due to both fiscal policy interventions and monetary policy interventions. It's true that the extension of budget implementation, to perhaps April or June, that's capital budget, that in itself is an aberration. Once we have a budget calendar, a budget year, January to June, ordinarily the government should be able to implement the capital project within that period. It's just that for quite some time now, they are not able to do that for one thing or the other. Secondly, we must understand the nature, the circumstances in which the economy has been operating and in which the budget, have been formulated and implemented. The circumstance of crisis in the economy, 2 recessions within 8 years, and then aggravated or elevated uncertainties. These definitely inform both the implementation, the formulation and implementation of the budget. Well, perhaps I'll find time later to say something on the title of the budget itself in relation to the economy. But meanwhile, on the issue of assumptions, which Kingsley expected me to say something about, I will say that generally I agree with the submissions of Professor Waleke. For me, the assumptions under the circumstances are generally realistic. The GDP growth rate of 3.75% is very much in line with recent trends, of improved growth, and then indicating resilience of the economy of the economy. Yes, there are headwinds, being signaled at the moment, related to performance next year. Perhaps if the recession threats that are, being mentioned now in the advance of global economies materialize, the growth projection, may be dampened, significantly. But otherwise, with continuation of interventions on the fiscal side and on the monetary side,
we may be able to achieve something near the projection, which still shows resilience, of the economy. Oil production, still suggests the target of 1.69 million barrels per day, still suggests that the government will not be able to have a good handle on the phenomenon of vandalization of pipelines in the Niger Delta, oil theft, and other malfeasance, to be able to achieve even the OPEC quota. I think it's about 1.8 something million barrels per day. And so what need to be done will be implement strategies and measures to resolve the issue of oil theft very quickly, such that more revenue, naira revenue for government and foreign exchange to strengthen the external reserve position and the naira will be obtained. In other words, the government must find a way to address this issue on a short-term basis. That's a major source of the crisis that is that's unfolded for some time in the economy. I know government recently appointed a firm in the Niger Delta to secure the pipelines and prevent oil theft. But if something more needs to be done, it needs to be done. The issue of exchange rate, assumption 435 naira per dollar is realistic. It's in line with current situation. I think as at 2 weeks ago or even now, the exchange rate already stood at about 435 or 30 something naira per dollar, and it's in line with the empirical studies done by the Central Bank of Nigeria on the equilibrium value of the naira exchange rate. The empirical studies do not support the current behavior in the black market or parallel market. And I think finally the oil price assumption is also realistic given the current trends in the futures oil market, and also the fact that recently there were reports that OPEC plus countries are planning to reduce oil production by about 2 million barrels per day. If such measures are implemented, it is very likely that even if oil prices decelerate in the global market, as had happened in the last few weeks, then definitely it may not be lower than $70 per barrel. So overall, Kingsley, I think the assumptions are generally realistic. What needs to be done to make the projections achievable, then the country should do it.
Thank you so much, Professor Baba. Let me join Professor Ken Ife. Professor Ken Ife, quite a large, big size appropriations, but a chunk of these appropriations will be borrowed to service the budget deficit of 10.78 trillion naira. What I'm talking about this because of circumstances that might crop up. The COVID-19 was an indication of what happened and how the oil prices went down. The president, in his speech while presenting the budget, really, harped on the fact that non-oil exports should be a huge contributing factor to the implementation of the 2023 budget. What is your assumptions there?
Well, in fact, let me even congratulate them for shifting back because before the expected revenue has gone up a bit from what we had during the strategy paper going in. So it's now gone up to about 9.73 trillion. And then of course the GOE revenue is also coming. So that's helpful. But in terms of the borrowing, and so I also say that the inflation target is actually very, very dodgy because we now have, if you look at the inflation, what is driving it is food, the sub-basket index. And this flood, scale of the flood we're having, the fraud will go away, but the food that have been destroyed will not go away. So we may have to struggle. We will struggle. That's not the place to make. We will struggle on food supply, and then that would mean higher prices of food and a shortage of food. So inflation is still going to go up, I'm afraid. So it might go up quite higher than the 17 that was predicted. But back on the issue of the borrowing. Now, there isn't a great lot you can do about what is expected to be borrowed, except that the projections on the revenue of the production should be, we should be concerned about 1.69 when we have the potential to go up to about 1.8 according to the gross quota. Don't forget that 300,000 barrels a day in that production is condensate. So we really need to get on top of that issue, as Professor Mike has mentioned. We need to get on top of it because that is a revenue coming in. If it doesn't come in as much, you're going to borrow up more. And then, of course, knowing that debt service is a priority, as well as all the current expenditure are priorities, we're going to see far more difficulty if we don't critically focus on that, removing that constraint that is stopping the production. Extremely important. Of course, there's also the need for us to look at how else we can manage down the expenditure, because I don't know how quickly the report about consolidation of these other NTAs to reduce cost and a lot of cost of governance, because that also will also reduce the impact on the budget. And then of course you have the revenue mobilization and revenue strategic revenue initiatives being followed by the Ministry of Finance. Very, very commendable. We need to have more traction on that, because again it's about raising the money that we can. Previously, we have seen that the revenue to GDP has gone from 7% to 8% here. It could go more higher. The target previously is to go to 15% by 2025 in the next 3 years. But we can't go higher. If it goes higher to about 9%, it also increases what we are getting in. And all those are within our reach and within our control. Oil price is not within our control. But the production and the cutting down on the sizes of the expenditure, and then bringing in more, widening the tax net, the way it has been projected in the strategic revenue initiative. All of those will simply contract our exposure, because it's going to be very, very difficult. With all these assumptions that we might remove the subsidy by June, is as Professor Waleke said, is difficult. It's difficult because if you don't remove it, it is not the new administration that will take the initial risk of having the baptism of fire, of coming in on that day wanting to remove subsidy. That's not going to work. They are going to stay free shy, as we have done over the last 7.5 years, in taking down the this. Of course, there are other ways. We can actually quietly raise the petrol price to 200 naira. Easy, you can do that to 200 naira. Surreptitiously go up a little bit, even if it is by 10%. That will also contract our debt exposure and then give more money to other. If NNPC can get more crude, then they could send more money to CBN. They're supposed to be sending about $3 billion every month. Now it's only about 300 billion. Where CBN is expected to disburse $1.98 billion every month to import. So you can see the imbalance. So if we can get more, the answer lies in pumping out more crude. Whatever it does, because it's going to settle a lot of the tension across the forex area, across the revenue expenditure, across everywhere. So I think that's how much it relates to the borrowing.
Okay, Professor Culinary, thank you there for your pitch on aspects of the appropriation bill now before the National Assembly. Shabu Idris, let's also have you weigh in on the assumptions and of course some comments that have been made with a resort again to more borrowing still to finance the 2023 appropriation.
Kingsley, I think fellow discussants have done justice on the subject matter of assumptions. I have some agreement and a bit of divergent views on one or two issues. Number one, I fundamentally feel that inflation being budgeted as 17.5% is a bit, if you like, utopian. As at today, if we were to just tinker with the basket of items that we take, the National Bureau for Statistics take in terms of arriving at inflation, we realize that as at today, inflation is somewhere around 30, 35, or even in some instances 40%. So 17% is a non-starter. I believe we should be realistic to say that inflation might be as high as 25 or 30%. The issue of GDP growth, 3.5, 3.7, again, to my mind, is a bit, is too positive, optimistic kind of. The central bank is currently mopping up liquidity. The CRR, the cash reserve ratio, has been increased. About 7 trillion naira is being mopped up. The interest rates have increased. I'm a debtor. I've just received a note from my bank to see interest rate on my credit or my loan has increased. That intends a little bit of contraction to business. What will that posit? Largely, there might be a bit of contraction. So to assume, to be optimistic that the economy could grow to about 3.7% in the coming year, I think is a bit optimistic. We need to water down that expectation. Regarding the issue of crude oil production, if we remember, virtually all of us in this panel today at one time or another did discuss the issue of crude oil production. When we were producing 2.2 million barrels per day, there was years that we produced 2.5 million barrels per day. What went wrong? If you go back to the first question, Kingsley, that you asked all of us, what were assumptions? Do we really interrogate the past budget? What went wrong? And what step have we taken to close those gaps? I believe it is high time that government should, and even in the assumption put, we have an OPEC quota of 1.82 barrels per day, and we are going to be producing 1.3 million barrels per day. It is a non-starter. So the point I'm making is, yes, government has done this assumption, but the assumption appeared to be a little suspect in quite a number of instances. There are 2 or 3 fundamental factors that international economies look at every point in time, which our budget seldom mention. Poverty level. There is no assumption, no budget as to what do we do on poverty level. Unemployment. What is our current unemployment? What do we hope to see next year? There is no assumption on that. Misery index. Every country measures the level of misery that the populace, bear. This government and this administration and successive administration, not just President Buhari's administration, will not be budgeting on this, and we should have assumption to guide our thoughts on these 3 key issues that affect each and every one of us, whether you are in position or you are a commoner as we are. I believe there is need for the budget office to begin to look at these 3 factors as part of annual budget assumption to be put in the Appropriation Act. Let's go to the issue of borrowing. We have a country today that will be spending close to about 7 trillion naira as debt servicing. The same country is going to be spending over 8 trillion naira on recurrent expenditure. We have not seen an assumption or a target that the government puts for itself in terms of what we call value for money accounting, to block the leakages, to reduce cost of governance, as Professor Ken Ife has said, so that way we have some level of savings to say from this savings we will be able to fund Even the capital expenditure. We have a budget that has a capital expenditure of 5 trillion naira, budget services of 6 trillion naira, and recurrent expenditure of 8 trillion naira. Is that fair? A developing country like ours, I believe the reverse should have been the case. Maybe our capital expenditure should be somewhere around 9 trillion naira, not 5 trillion naira. And the recurrent expenditure should be 3 to 4 trillion naira, at most 5 trillion naira. We are borrowing to service loans. We are borrowing to pay salaries. We are borrowing to incur recurrent expenditure, consumption. How do you borrow to fund consumption? This is an abnormality. In any economy, this is an abnormality. Yes, the assumptions are there, but fundamentally, when you interrogate and you look at the budget, we have a serious problem in this country, and if care is not taken the next 2-3 years, things might ground to a halt because of this level of borrowings.
Shaibu Idris, you've raised some pertinent questions, but I would like to comment here. The president in his budget presentation said that the borrowing, Nigerian borrowing, is within limits because still the government has been able to service debt. What's your take?
Yes, Mr. President did say the budget is within limit, but Jumai, which of the limits? There are about 2-3 limits as far as Fiscal Responsibility Act has put, and one of those limits, the president did admit that they are over and above what the Fiscal Responsibility Act provided. No two way about it. Number one, Jumai, our revenue to GDP ratio is below the reasonable even African benchmark, not even international benchmark. We are still at 5-6% when international is about 16%. Budget, debt to GDP is somewhere around 36-37%. We are about getting to the minimum threshold of 40%. Other factors, like I did say, the president did agree that these are over and above the limit, and he justified rightly that the situation we find ourselves made it possible that we go over and above that. But even then, how much are we doing to reduce cost of governance? If we can just tinker with our expenditure, this borrowing can appropriately be managed because we will be doing savings. Every one of us know if you are earning a salary of 200,000 naira, the day your salary comes down to 150 naira, 150,000 naira, wouldn't you adjust? But this country is not adjusting. Everybody and everything is just business as usual. There is no arm of government that is looking at where are we today? What do we need to do so that we sustain this country? But it's just business as usual. This is my concern.
Shuaibu Idris, thank you very much for the comments that you have made. There are a number of matters, gentlemen, arising from the contributions that you have each made. We know the borrowing plan, it's one of them, and then the aggregates for the critical numbers, recurrent, capital, and of course debt, and then of course debt servicing. Those are critical issues. But I think that I want to piggyback on one of the issues raised by Shuaibu Idris, namely what appears missing in the budget to say that yes, we have assumptions about other aspects, crude oil production, the rate of inflation, the GDP growth, but we don't have indices relating to how the budget will help in knocking down poverty levels, in knocking down the misery index, and as well as in tackling unemployment. Which leads me to the question, beginning with you, Professor Uche Waleke. Again, probably can tie it up to review what went on in the past. So say, is the appropriation designed ultimately to deliver the public goods? Or alternatively, is the appropriation delivering the public goods? Because out of the public goods, you will have an impact on the misery index, on the poverty index, and the unemployment index? Professor Waleke.
Thanks, Kinsley. Let me start by noting that a budget is nothing but a short-term planning instrument. Now, the budget essentially derives from the medium-term expenditure framework, 3 years. And the medium-term expenditure framework is usually a product of a national development plan. So we have a national development plan, 2021 to 2025, and in that plan, I'm aware that you will find targets with respect to the number of Nigerians that will be lifted out of poverty. For example, it says that between 2021 and 2025, the government expects to lift 21 million Nigerians, out of poverty. It also has the number of Nigerians. It also intends to, lift or remove out of the unemployment.
100 million.
100 million is lifted out of, but that's over a 10-year period.
But if you don't
within that 10-year period, within that 10, we have the medium one, which is 2021 to 2025, that now says 21 million people are expected to be lifted out of poverty, within that period. So what I'm saying is, these targets are there in the national plan, okay? And as I said, a budget is meant to be a tool to operationalize, the national plan. It's a short-term plan. So they are there. And let us also note that there's a limit to which the budget speech we expect to find in the president's budget speech. Even this one we saw, the president's speech we saw, a 10-page document. It's quite elaborate. I think he used that opportunity to talk about what they have done in terms of funding infrastructure, what they intend to do in terms of also reducing prices. For the first time we had those inputs there. So essentially, it is the breakdown of the budget of the budget speech by the Minister of Finance, and that is expected to have the details of what the President has said. But permit me to also weigh in on some of the issue of borrowing, which for me is a major my major concern. You find that the deficit is 10.7 trillion.
Yeah.
Out of that 10.7 trillion, the government says they want to do 8.8 new borrowing, 8.8 trillion new borrowing. The capital spend is 5.3 trillion, the capital component. So it means that we are borrowing, the borrowing is higher than the capital. What it means that close to 3 trillion of that borrowing is going to recurrent. So it's a major worry. And I also think that if we look at that appropriation bill, I've tried to go through it, 2,208 pages. If you look at it, you place it side by side with that of last year, we should be able to trim it down and reduce the size of that, the 20.5. It can be reduced. Overheads alone is 1.1 trillion. Okay, I want to give you an example. If you look at the service-wide vote alone has allocation of over 3 trillion. Okay, you find that service-wide vote in the budget of the Federal Ministry of Finance.
Yes.
And in that service-wide vote, you find it has recurrent and capital. The recurrent has contingency of 30 billion. Contingency is what you provide for unforeseen, 30 billion. The same 30 billion we provided for contingency in 2022. The same. And you also find, apart from the contingency, you also have what they call margin for increase in cost, 12%. You go to capital, you have contingency of 15 billion. You have margin for adjustment to capital expenditure of 19 billion. If you add all those contingency margin, you have over 70 billion.
Wow.
Meanwhile, the Ministry of Science and Technology was allocated 23 billion naira, by way of capital vote. So I'm saying that in that document, we need to also look at allocation of resources.
Okay.
Allocation of resources to prioritize the developmental portion, the capital portion, as opposed to heaping money on overheads, heaping money on areas that are also prone to corruption.
Well, indeed, you raised a lot of pertinent questions here, but you get to our guests will get to respond to the question, Kinsley, 3 of them when we come back after this break. Do stay.
Nigerians, elections are here again. Let us shun violence. Let us play the game according to the rules. Do not be a thug. Say no to violence. Let's rise and defeat violence, crime, and sabotage against the peace of our nation. Nigeria is the only country we have. We must do everything to keep it united. We must avoid any act that promotes hate and disintegration. Say no to separatist movement, terrorism, fake news, hate speech, religious bigotry, and any act that tends to divide us as a nation. Watch out for strange gatherings and suspicious movements. Restrict access to sensitive documents and data, the disclosure of which may damage national security. Educate your staff and family, particularly on measures to safeguard information and report security breaches. Apply relevant legal security guidelines to protect yourself and your neighbors. Due to misinformation and wrong choices, some idle persons resort to vices in their greed to get rich quick. They resort to kidnapping, killings for rituals, and other heinous crimes. Avoid wrong use of the social media. Before you broadcast that false message, think twice. Ask whether it will promote peace or violence. For safety at home, still be security conscious. Educate your household on safety tips. Report all suspicious movements and persons to the security agencies nearest to you. Be a good citizen. Be patriotic. To pass security information, please call 0813-222-2105, 0915-339-1309, 0908-837-3514, or send a mail to dsspr@dss.gov.ng. This message is from the Department of State Services, DSS.
Finally, the hero of Nigeria's democracy has arrived. He shall usher us into a new phase of development, peace, and prosperity. He is the father of the new Nigeria, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR. Welcome to another season of giving Nigerians hope yet again. We are sure of a great future for both ourselves and generations yet unborn. We look forward to your leading us as a nation to our manifest destiny. Though the challenges against us as a people are many, we know that your leadership shall set us on the right path to our greatness. A new dawn beckons on us all, and having you as our president is a precursor to this. Thank you for believing in Nigeria. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
We've been trying our best to contain the situation, and in our operations we've been able to make a lot of recoveries. We've been able to also arrest suspects that are involved in this kind of activities, and we've been able to also recover particularly arms and ammunition from those who are carrying it unlawfully and disturbing the peace of the people. But generally, our morale in the Nigerian police is always guided by our commitment to do what we have sworn to do. Peace and security must be looked into as a priority by all, to look at security as the business of all of us.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The counsel of our fathers.
I believe we have fought one civil war too many in this country. So those who experience it will run away from it.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
You're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. All our four regular guests on economic and financial matters are still with us as we'll commence the conversations around the 2023 appropriation bill of the federal government. Let's go over to our Benin Network Center and we join Professor Mike Obada. Professor Mike Obada, I still would like to ride on the question as to whether the appropriation bill can and may ultimately help in delivering the public goods that will have a significant impact on the indices to which Shaibu Idris drew our attention: unemployment, misery, and poverty. What is there in the budget that could guarantee this, or what should the lawmakers now be looking at?
Thank you very much, Kingsley. But let me first of all elaborate very briefly on the very crucial point made by Mr. Shaibu Idris on the issue of the need for adjustment. I tended to shudder in using adjustment in the past, but now that he has mentioned it, but it's the issue actually that I had alluded to in my opening remarks that I will come back to. You will see that the budget presentation gives the impression that, or tends to give the impression that things are normal. In the economy, you just take some rather palliative measures and then the situation will be much better. But it is not so. There is a high level of economic crisis in the country and manifested in through different indicators. The fiscal deficit is ballooning, public debt is ballooning, there is foreign exchange crisis in the economy, a situation which indicates that the economy is very far living beyond its means, and yet we want to worsen that situation through more and more borrowing, which is not advisable. And you will find that the budget is captioned fiscal, budget of fiscal consolidation and transition. Anyone that sees that one would expect something a little different from what has turned out to be the budget. Fiscal consolidation, normally in the economics parlance refers to the situation whereby government implements policies and measures to reduce its fiscal deficit and debt accumulation. But you will find that the opposite tends to be the case as portrayed through the budget. In other words, the budget does not seem to appreciate much that there is an economic crisis which has to be dealt with through strong reforms. That is to say, something like stabilization measures and strong reforms, to use a lighter language, or as Mr. Idris said, adjustment. What is needed, we expect the budget at this point in time is to introduce such reforms, but with a human face, without adverse effect on social spending, for example. And then all other, inessential, public spending would be reduced in such that we have much lower recurrent expenditure, then you have much higher level of capital expenditure that can drive growth and yield the public goods which Kingsley rightly mentioned. And so I would have ordinarily expected a situation whereby government consumption is reduced, and focus on capital, critical capital spending, infrastructure and all that one, which the government has taken as a priority in the past years, sustained. But this one is not the case. Rather, the budget is highly expansionary, which if I had opportunity would not have advised, because of the expansionary nature of the budget and very low revenue mobilization capability. Then the government is hoping to borrow much more, maybe about 8.8 trillion and so on and so forth. That one will further compound the debt situation and similar kind of challenges. And that leads me to the question of the indication in the budget that our debt position is within accepted or acceptable limits of 40%. Mr. Idris' analysis again is pertinent. There is right. What I will always advise government to do a rethink of that position. That position of using debt to GDP ratio as a measure of debt sustainability or lack of challenges on the debt is not helpful. Is misleading in the Nigerian situation. You cannot use that one to compare Nigeria with other countries that have much better indicators, high level of revenue mobilization, high tax to GDP ratio, which they fall back on to service large amounts of debt. But like Mr. Idris says, those indicators are not really helpful in Nigerian situation. And so what should be of importance to us in guiding future debt accumulation is what is our debt servicing capacity in terms of revenue. That is not optimistic at this point in time. It's not satisfactory, and going forward, it seems to have some challenges. So that in itself should caution the country from further accumulation. And now, given the monetary policy normalization in the many advanced countries and even the emerging and market economies, interest rates are rising. Interest rates are rising on debt, and so the cost of servicing becomes much more, which means then that even on the present debt stock, the cost of servicing next year will be much higher if they were not on fixed terms initially. So one will appeal to government to do a rethink of his position on debt, and then also can review the budget to initiate some adjustment measures relating to government consumption. The issue of cost of governance is part of this whole thing. So then on the question that Kingsley asked about the delivery by the budget on certain public goods like employment, poverty, and related social indicators, I will say yes, we are not able to say that one on the basis of the information that has come to the public space. That is the budget statement. Perhaps the budget breakdown, which is likely to follow soon, by the Honorable Minister of Finance, is likely to give, insights, as to how unemployment, will be reduced, and then poverty, will also be reduced. But of course, the budget has been drawn up against the backdrop of the medium-term National Development Plan 2021 to 2025, and that one has some details or strategies on how to reduce poverty, how to improve employment and hence unemployment, and so on.
Professor Obada, thank you so much for your input. Let's join Professor Ken. If apart from the indicators, what is your take on the critical areas that you think the budget didn't really address, and the call for the reduction in the cost of governance?
Well, I connect this to the bomb that Shaibu has dropped, which is how sustainable can we be in dealing with poverty reduction. The only instrument being used for poverty reduction is the 500 billion social intervention fund every year, which has even gone down to 400 billion and still going down. But that, let me tell you, if you divide that money by minimum wage, it can only employ 1 million people. So there's no way you can, on the basis of that budget, go for that target of 100 million people. So the question is, are we still going to continue to rely on anything but investments in creating jobs? This traditional model about creating jobs is inflow of investment, whether domestic or foreign, to create economic activity, to generate jobs. Jobs generate disposable income. Disposable income pays for education, health, and poverty reduction in a sustainable cycle. That is what it should be. You don't want people to pay Paul and say you are going to reduce poverty. Now, we are also now know that we have no escape from borrowing, debt finance, deficit finance. And we have now seen that the deficit financing has exceeded capital expenditure, which FR in 2007 said you borrow for capital purposes of human resource development, which includes employment, education and health and then other. But we are now going beyond that. So we have to deal with the configuration of the debt. We've seen that the debt service is 6.3 trillion higher than the capital expenditure. We've seen that the borrowing over 8 point something trillion. Don't forget that from June to December, another 3.3 trillion will come from subsidy. So it is going to be effectively 11 trillion to be borrowed, and that is twice, more than twice the capital expenditure. So let's deal with the configuration of the debt. That's the real thing to deal with. Not harassing poverty by saying you juggle the juggle. There's nothing to juggle. We are harassing poverty. So what we should do, we are only going for debt instruments. It's not this instrument what we use. The only thing that we have done on asset-based financing is the privatization proceeds of 206 billion, and that is so small. So let's look at the big spanner in the works is the NNPC that has increased the debt listing by about 6 trillion. That the debt, but at the same time, it presents us with a good opportunity to move to capital asset-based finance. If Saudi Arabia needed $25 billion, and it's one of the biggest companies, richest countries in the world, but they didn't go to borrow that money from any of the banks, multilateral banks. Instead, tell me the value of Saudi Aramco. And when they found that the value was 1.5 trillion, he said, wait a minute, just take it to the capital market and just sell 5%. Easy, and that was it. They got what they wanted. But that act of taking it to the capital market has increased the value in 2 years from 1.6 trillion to 2.3 trillion dollars, the most capitalized company in the world. So we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity right now with NNPC, which is at the moment about $100 billion. Just take it to capital market within 3 to 6 months and sell only 10%. And make sure you are selling it to the indigenous, the people in the United Delta, Nigerians, everywhere, the oil marketers, the unions. Let people buy share and own this element. Feel that they are owners of it, and they will.
Director, come.
You must get the people to get involved so that they can now take this whole problem about vandalization of our pipe. People will deal with it. Because at the moment we are suffering because people don't feel that they own this company, they have a share in it. Nobody knows, and this is a national asset. There's no.
Professor Kenny, I'm sorry to interject. We're getting pressed for time. Of course, we know that going forward we'll have other opportunities to interrogate aspects of the appropriation bill. But I just wanted Shuaibu Idris to also weigh in on this, and I'm sure it's a matter that the other guest, will also have consideration on going forward. We'll be talking about cost of governance, and then we have also seen the size of the recurrent budget for 2023. I did not appear to hear anything, for instance, other than to say, look, we're going to get rid of subsidy in June, July next year. Nothing appears to have been said about the restructuring of the MDAs on the basis of the oversight report, where you have 600 plus MDAs, and these are some of the cost centers for the recurrent expenditure. Is this a lacuna that can be taken care of?
Thank you once again, Kisley. If you read the budget speech of Mr. President, you will note that there was a paragraph there that he did mention of the Steve Orosanya report, where he alluded to the fact that a certain portion of the report has been implemented, and one of which was the issue of consolidation of budget of the GOE, the government-owned companies, with the federal government, and a number of issues regarding personnel cost. But till now, the government has lacked the political will, the courage, and indeed the determination to implement, that gospel report by Steve Orosanya and his team. And I believe it will be good if Mr. President could please give us that as his parting gift. The budget speech that Professor Uche Owaleke alluded to, the fact that was too long, it was more like quote and unquote a valedictory speech by Mr. President, because that is his last budget speech to the National Assembly. So he codified all the project that his administration has been able to implement in the last 8 years. And just on a lighter note, if you look at the day the president went in, all the three key officers of government, himself, the Senate President, and the Speaker, all wore white dresses as if they compared note before they came on that day. So I believe generally it will be good if Mr. President could do this. And there was something I noted in that speech that was a bit of an abnormality. I think the author didn't do justice or didn't carefully look at it. The tax credit. In one portion of the tax credit, the road construction by some companies like the Dangote Group, the BUA, the LNG, it was one portion said 1,500 kilometers of road, and another section of it, they said 2,000 kilometers of road. So we don't know which one is which. Kingsley, fellow discussant, I believe, there is much to be done, and I do pray most sincerely that the National Assembly will listen to some of this comment and be able to do justice in trying to approve this budget with a view to introducing an aspect of austerity measures that is long overdue to have been introduced in this system.
Mr. Shaibu Idris, thank you so much for your comment there, and on a lighter note, indeed, I'm sure they must have thought that this is the last one. Let's just go out in white, and go out in a blaze of glory, like they say. Thank you so much for your input on the program this morning. Managing Director and CEO, Timeline Consult Limited. He joined us from our Kaduna studio. Also via Zoom, we have joining us from Enugu, Professor Ken Ife. He's an economic policy analyst. As usual, it's a pleasure to have you join us on the program. And from our Benin studio, we were joined by Professor Mike Obado, Professor of Economics and member CBN Monetary Policy Committee. Professor Uche Owaleke, Professor of Capital Market at the Nasarawa State University, KEFI, and President Capital Market Academics in Nigeria. As always, it's a pleasure to have you join us to discuss and digest, issues based on finance and budgetary affairs. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Jemai.
Well, that is how it's been on Good Morning Nigeria for today, the first edition for the week. Thanks so much for joining us. Join us tomorrow for more. I am Jumbo Kieso.
And happy Eid al-Maulud to all out there. Tomorrow is another day, 7 o'clock, same time. I'm Kingsley Osadabo.
Move entering to the latest technology. Welcome to Intel 4G LTE Advanced and experience super fast internet access today. Visit intel.com.ng or any of our stores in Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt to get started. Intel. Learn more.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can watch NTA International live on your TV, computer, iPad, tablet and phone. Log on to visiontv.co.uk and click on Entertainment, then NTA. You can also download the iOS or Android app on your mobile devices to watch NTA International on the go, anywhere in the world. NTA International. Your window through the world.
This is the network service of the NTA.
Welcome to Thoughts for the Week, and we're talking proverbs, wise sayings, allegories, you name them, things that help us to understand life better, and we use them to talk about things happening around us today. And most of the proverbs I get from here. I hope you know that already. Now, let's take a look at success. What is success? If you go through the thesaurus, for instance, you'll find some keywords used to describe success. Achievements, triumph, wins, and so on. One of the major opposites of success will now be failure. That is a very, very strong word. A sage once said that the road to success is like a road under construction. Take a look at this road under construction. You can see that we have a lot on the road, signages, heavy-duty machines. You can see then a lot of people working on the road. That's exactly what the sage has said the road to success is like. That means you have to work on this road, maneuver all the signs, all the heavy hurdles along the path to success. You have to learn to do that because our elders have said there are no shortcuts to the top of the palm tree. A wise one once said, to try and fail is not laziness. Did our elders not tell us that on the path of life, the path to success, that we meet different things? Failure being one of such things. Did they not say that we should try, that eventually we would succeed? They told us this, that what happens to you does not count as much as what you do about what happens to you. That means how you react to what is happening to you matters a lot. I was thoroughly pained recently when a young guy took his life because the music industry hadn't favored him as much as he had wanted it to. Why? Did he not hear the story of a particular man? I'll tell you the story of this man. This was a man who believed what the elders had to say. Nobody knows tomorrow. Tomorrow is pregnant and nobody knows what it will bear. I'm talking about Baba Fatai Rolling Dollar. After so many years of struggles of watching the children in quote he had brought up in music explode while he was still struggling, he eventually did make it at age 75 plus. He died a legend. He lived a full life and he was hailed as a hero. Why? Because he overcame all the odds and eventually made it. So if you're young, you're vibrant, don't just give up because you think that things are not going your way. So just like Baba Fatai Rolling Dollar, I'd encourage you to be patient, because it is said that patience is the mother of a beautiful child. So be patient, because our elders have said, the vulture cannot feed on a man who is alive. So keep the faith. Be alive. So our thoughts for the week, it's more like a challenge again. Think about those little successes you've had. Celebrate them. Smile. And be grateful you still have life. Because with life, there is hope. Be determined to move on. Because our elders say, it is only the determined man who stoops to crack the hard shell of the palm nut that could eat the sweet kernel. So stay alive, my friend. The nuts may not be that difficult to crack after all. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
To say for to say that's all to be I'm born into an Egba, Ogun State, Abeokuta musical family, the Olumide family. The heartbeat, therefore, of all of us as the Olumide family is one that has revolved around music, and we've grown with music all our years. I grew up the daughter of now late Admiral Femi Olumide, and he was the first Indigenous officer in charge of the Naval Dockyard, which was right next door to NTA in VI at Wilmot Point. And I grew up with Barbie shows. Uncle Atalade, when they were done with Barbie show, the recording on Saturday, we would move to our home and they would have the after events, after show. So I grew up with all of that. The celebration of jazz was also something my father was very much into. And many nights when he would come home from work, he would meet me curled up in his chair waiting for him, and the first thing I'd hear would be he'd have these big bass headphones just placed on my little head at the age of 7, and I'll just be hearing Nina Simone, Ella Fitzgerald, and so for me, jazz, music, all of these were part of my heritage. And so as Dio, I'm very musical. So
Why not take all? You know what? There is so much more than all. If you simply pay attention to more, something's working in the system. Something hurting. Wildcats. Why did you choose jazz? I tell her, hey, I didn't choose jazz. Jazz. So.
Jazz in Nigeria started from when the people called Creoles, the Saros, people from Sierra Leone, after abolishment of slave trade, when they decided to come back to Nigeria, one thing they brought with them is jazz. And then today, jazz has given birth to a lot of other genres of music. So jazz was brought to us. And then one of the foundation of jazz in Nigeria is actually not even a Nigerian, it's Iti Mensah of Ghana. He had a big band, and then many of our composers and artists, they followed that trend. So the first set of jazz composers are probably Bobby Benson. He wrote a lot of big band jazz, and then they were all influenced by big band of Benny Goodman, and then many of them were influenced. And then Con Fela. So although he was still playing jazz, but then he started playing highlife jazz, and he brought a lot of African elements into it. So all the artists and composers took a clue from Fela's music, and then we started doing African things. We started putting African idioms, African culture into jazz. And so the jazz you listen to in this part of the world is actually different from what you will listen to in America or anywhere else, because our culture is now mixed with our kind of jazz.
And I'm for my love. And I'm with Bajilawa. This is the war for my love. Madam Joko Jeje. Yahoo, you are the champion.
The likes of Yinka Davies, Ego, Mike Aremu, and then Lagbaja, they are unique. They produce unique sounds. It's a lot of African elements in their jazz music.
I didn't set out to be a singer. I wanted to be an actor, a fine artist, an agriculturist. So singing the back burner. But I started acting, building my craft from 16, 17. My first impression was First Excellency. Made a strong impression, but I still didn't get it until one fine day I found out that the singers outside the country gave expression to words. Louis Armstrong, Ella Fitzgerald, and Billie Holiday. They painted a picture for me. Just close your eyes and you can see everything they're singing about.
I'm looking for something soothing. I mean, that's what jazz does, you know. It relaxes you, it serenades you. So you have to have a beautiful time. And of course, with 2020, and now we're here. I mean, it's something to be thankful for. And why not jazz it up?
I love talking about life and the beauty that we create every day when we go out, when we come in. When we greet our fathers and mothers on the streets. Cultural exchange. Really and truly, it's all about us as a people. Our communal living. I miss it.
Wow.
Splendid.
Wow. It was amazing. I think jazz is spiritual. It kind of just connects with you, right? And when it's Yinka Davis, it takes you so well. She's just an enigma, really.
There's something that speaks to you when you listen to jazz. And with jazz in Nigeria coming from the 60s till date, I think we have come a long way. And this was exceptional this evening.
Every soul alive, every human being alive is unique. You can want to sound like somebody else. I want to sound like Ella Fitzgerald, and yet I sound like me. So the best thing you can do is to give yourself. How to express what I've been trying to say for years. This is exactly what I've been trying to say. Expressing yourself in sound. That is the explanation of jazz. Jazz gives expression to it. The light is staring at me in the face and I'm wondering already why the man put it there. That is jazz. You're laughing, exactly. That is jazz. Now putting it into words and making the person listening laugh along with you. That is the explanation and the expression passed on to the other. We have a sister Symbiosis. The two of us, we just connected over the years, and the jazz in us is like a 5 and 6 heartbeats. If she does something, I respond.
I do something, she resonates. And Yinka Davis, I mean, just 2 months ago, she lost her son. And she's translated her pathos into a place of performance. So you don't feel her pain. You're able to embrace her in this. And it's not about grief, but it's about a growth. I've seen her just emerge. And for me, she is the Africa culture ambassador of jazz. I always call her the first lady of jazz. And she corrected me the other day. She said, no, I'm not. Auntie Frank Kubere is. And I thought that was so honoring. And that's just she's just basic, real. She takes what is dialectical from our tribal Yoruba ethos. But Yinka can do Chinese, Japanese, French, German. I mean, she's replete with so much spontaneous ingenuity with her songs and then with her persona. She's just so real. So for me, I celebrate her. Who else? Uncle Tunde Kude of Jazz 38. Amazingly, he impacted my life in two very unique ways. He used to coordinate school debates. And that's where I was trained up as a debater from Queen's College. And he was the one that told me that, little girl, nobody's expecting you to fail or to mess up. That freed me. But there was something much more than that. The jazz grew with me. And then later on in life, coming into Jazz 38 to do some performances and things like that. The jazz there and his mentoring with Auntie Fran just did so much to bring me into a place of connecting with my inner voice and my soul. Today at 74, I celebrate Jazz 38 as part of the history. Uncle Wale Bokno, R.I.P. blessed memory, he set up the Nigerian Naval Band. My dad brought him into the Navy. They set up the band together. They were all into the jazz. We used to have those events. So that's Uncle Wale Bokno of blessed memory. Kunle Bolarinwa, R.I.P. also of Cave Ibadan. Those of us who were in Ibadan in those days, University of Ibadan, and all the big boys and big girls. When you want to mention Cave, everybody like, come on, we're just like a tribe. And it was all the jazz and everybody just coming together. So when you mentioned the Steve Rhodes voices, trained me, Bongo Zikwe, Kokro Adon, Bobby Benson, it just doesn't stop.
At Alade, who had the preachers, and then from there we started having so many other musicians come up. Elder Steve Rhodes of blessed memory, Fela Shuwandi, they had this jazz band and dance group. And then, so fast forward to today, what do we have today? We have a lot of intelligent, young, brilliant artists.
Now that's the idea, trying to make the audience feel the music with me. So I got to a point where I realized that audience should also be part of the process. So at times I come on stage with the aim of bringing my audience into the music. At times I make the music there on stage, so I get them to say something and we start making music on stage. So I'm enjoying this as much as the audience are enjoying the music too. Trying to introduce this kind of style to a new audience, it's not that easy, but we love jazz. It's been a journey. It's been a journey of over a decade. Listening, working hard at work. Then at some point I realized that I know so much rather, and bringing it out in a way that is different was key. So you try and error here and there, Okay, can I do something that no one does? Is it possible? Can I create an experiential music? Can I create experiment with music? So those were the questions I started asking myself, and it brought me to this part of my music, of my jazz music. So now I'm thinking, okay, the next show, how can I create an experience that they won't forget? You can't take away the essence of jazz as it relates to one spirituality. It gives you that opportunity to truly think deep. Yeah, because that's one music that a genre that can take you to across the globe and back and still feel good with yourself. They say when you're moody, you listen to jazz, not necessarily so, but when you really want to be alive, you listen to jazz.
I love jazz. I listen to Manu Dibango, listen to all those great guys, and then I say to myself that, look, if there is anything that Africa can produce that will be unique to Africa, it is African jazz. I started playing from a very young age. I could remember that at the age of 7, I performed at the ECOWAS conference here in Abuja, Sheraton Hotel. That was the era of General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, when many head of states came to Nigeria for the ECOWAS conference. I went to schools that have history of music, like CMS Grammar School has history of great people like Fela Showande. In fact, there's no way you mention jazz music and then Fela Showande won't come in. Art Alade, you know, these people who really, they were jazz. They attended the same school. So there is history behind my evolution. I also studied music, studied at the Muson, then went to University of Winneba, you know, to the classical music, and then I delved into African music. The experience for me is all encompassing. It goes beyond the music. What do they see? What do they feel? You get it? So the idea of experience for me is to evoke different emotions. You know, I want people to, I set the mood for people to say, wow, okay, this is it.
He's taken music and turned it into a tapestry of technology, of the message, of what is indigenous to us, but clearly what is still a global product that anywhere in the world you can embrace it, make it part of a Nigerian mandate to impact the world.
You see, I was there when jazz left a beautiful beat on the Nigerian soil. I was there when E.T. Mensa launched its band in 1961. And when the expatriates were coming back in the 40s, I was there. You know, I remember it vividly. As we waited by the shores, you know, waiting to welcome them. But what did they know? Gold? Nah.
Playing this character is like a lesson in the history of jazz for me, because there's so many things about jazz I didn't know that, you know, playing this character made me understand, and particularly jazz when it comes to Nigeria, what jazz was, how it grew in Nigeria. Today is a living proof that jazz is still very much alive and, you know, present with us.
And then I went to Katsina, and there I experienced the powerful voice of Bala here. And then down toward Katsina, I fell in love with the voice of Bongo Sequin. Lord.
Merging the whole conversation of music, history, and education really is the impetus for this platform and this expression of this genre, not just as music or the sound of music, but the story of music in the Nigerian genre of jazz. When a lady kept crying throughout the show, and I couldn't but go backstage to go and apologize to the crowd and beg them, give me some few minutes, I shall be right back. And she just couldn't stop crying. That was one of the very few experiences in my young life that you're watching a show and a lady just can't cry. She's happy, but she just can't cry. I can't. If the proverbial Jesus living in 99 sheep and going up to one, that's exactly how he felt. I had to, I'll just say, I will be right back after this time out. I'll go back and I'll go and sit with her. Okay. I'm okay for you. Fine. So, you can't buy that with money. You can't pay for such an experience.
I cannot be who I am without the music. The music has been life to me.
It is an explanation of a movement, of a journey.
As a veritable instrument of national integration and peaceful coexistence, culture is a very important element in any society. In Nigeria, festivals are bound to emphasize and showcase the rich cultural heritage of the people. These cultural festivals are found in all the states in the country, and some have become international events attracting tourists from all over the world, and one of such is Ohola Festival of the Zuru people. Zuru is one of the local governments in Kebbi State, northwest of Nigeria. It is a state known for its tourist potentials.
There are several theories about where they came about. Some theories says they migrated through Katsina and came to where they are now. And that's why we have this joking relationship with the Katsina people. There is a theory that says we migrated through from the north through Benin Kebbi to Zuru, and there are theories, historical theories, that there was a valiant Zulu man who was a commander in the army of the Kebbi people. So, whatever is the true history, we've been trying to research on it and to document it.
Before the introduction of the emirate system in the 90s, Zuru was made up of 5 chiefdoms. The name Zuru, which used to be very thick forest, has its roots from Azuguru or Azuramu.
Actually, the name of our place is Azuguru, a den of lions. But the Hausa people and the other cultures who could not pronounce it shortened it to Zuru. And that is the official name that has been taken. Whether it has historical significance or political significance, I don't know. But our name, the name of our town was changed. The Biti. Now, the Biti is a ceremony where prayers are offered to God for a bountiful rainy season. It comes before the rains. It's like prophetic. People believe in advance that God will hear the prayer. So people rejoice, celebrate, and merry over that.
The people of Zuru believe in the Supreme Being, and as such, whatever venture they are to be engaged in, they pray for success at the shrine.
But the prominent shrine we have in that area is Germache. Germache is by the riverside where we call Zuru Dam now, and their medium are crocodiles. People come to them with various requests. People who want children come with chicken, goats. So if you go there, you'll find chicken, goats, just wallowing around there that have been brought as sacrifice. People go there with ailments, and many have said they have results because it's what you believe in that works for you. Anybody who has any problem that is beyond solution, who is not a Christian or a Muslim, who is a traditionalist, goes to the shrine.
Ohola Festival is a unique annual event in the whole of Zuru chiefdoms. It is celebrated separately by the 5 chiefdoms in Zuru Emirate, namely Dabai, Fakai, Sakaba, Wasagu, and Zuru.
Right now we have an emir who is the overall traditional leader in our land. He is the emir of Zuru. He is the supreme leader of the land. Under him there are 5 chiefdoms. The 5 chiefdoms are occupied by chiefs. Under the chief you have 20 districts that preside over various territories in the land. And under the district heads you have the village heads. Now, within each village you have those in charge of sections who are called Mai Ungwa, who take care of certain areas and ensure peace and stability.
The programs of this year have been a little bit modified and more fashionable, if I may put it that way. And as you can see, the crowd is most impressive, and of course, the visitors from outside, they are just quite many.
Dog meat is a special delicacy in Zuru. It is more cherished among the people in the southern part of Zuru, the learners. The learners are known as Dunkagwa, meaning people that eat dogs as a special meat or slaughter dogs for special celebration such as cultural festival, The people of Zuru Division in Kebbi State operate Golmo system, a tradition where young boys work in the farms of the would-be in-law for a period of 2 to 7 years. Consequently, such relationship culminates into marriage, which is usually celebrated during the Ohola Festival.
Golmo is the period of 7 years that a young man serves his in-laws to pay the bride price in kind through labor for his wife. So 7 years, an age group, they are age group by age group. So typically you should have 7 classes, age groups by age groups, from 10 years old to maybe 15, 20 at the top of the range. Each age group is constituted into a class, and they go in turn to farm each in-law's farm. So assuming you have 20 people in the first year of Golmo, they will farm 20 farms in rotation. And no matter the size of the farm, they must finish it in 1 day. Now, you can see where the training starts. The Golmo class is hierarchical and discipline is maintained. That is why our children are taught hard work. They are taught to farm. They are taught not to be dependent on anybody. They are taught to go into jungle and face whatever challenges are there. They are taught to maintain secrets. And that's why it was easy for us to defeat the Hausa Fulani incursions, because the Golmo class and the warrior class, messages were passed secretly in the night and people rallied around to fight the common enemy. Now, it is this Golmo institution that has made our people the first choice in the army.
I congratulate all the organizers and the Zuru Emirate Council for this well-organized Ohola Festival, which is one of 4 major festivals in Kebbi. The Ohola Festival is a festival that is celebrated in Zuru Emirate, and it celebrates hard work, chivalry, competition. As you can hear, one of the most famous elements of Ohola is called Golmo, which is a historic process where people seeking to get a wife work for the father of the bride for 7 years and then end up by demonstrating their commitment to hard work, ability to provide for a family. So the state government is supporting all the festivals. This Ohola, Regatta, Boat Festival in Yauri, or Tungo, which is a Fulani festival, and the more widely known Argungu Fishing Festival.
Every year, all the chieftains come together to the city center to celebrate the Ohola Festival, put together by the Emirate under the rulership of His Royal Highness Dr. Muhammad Sani Sami Gomo II, the Emir of Zuru.
The Ohola Festival is the festival that is celebrated after every product that has been planted during the season has been harvested and put in barns.
The Ohola Festival is one of the
major festivals that we have in Kebbi State, and it falls under tourism as a whole. And you know Kebbi State has the potential to export its tourism to the outside world.
The festival is a roll call of who is who, as people come from all over the nooks and crannies of Nigeria to celebrate Ohola Festival, clad in their best traditional attires.
We have come up with a lot of innovations. Each contingent from each chiefdom, they are identified with a uniform. And everything you want to display here culturally, it must be strictly traditional.
As you witnessed in all the previous Oholas that has been happening in Zuru Emirates, it has called people from outside the country, within the country, from the Federal Capital Territory, and this year's Ohola is the beginning and the mark, and I hope and I believe and pray of a change in the right direction towards seeking to find a ground where we can say this is our Ohola village.
It is a period of festivity where every village comes with its people in their attire, colorful attires. Each person celebrates the dignity of the profession of his family, and we are proud of it, and we are bequeathing it to the next generation.
During the week-long event, each chiefdom showcases their valor and tenacity in their culture and tradition, which include traditional wrestling and archery competition.
Wrestling is a major event in all our communities. When people come back from farm, eat in the night, around 10, 11, the young men go to wrestle and test their mettle and find out who is the hero in the village.
Other events include mini fishing competition and award ceremonies for the sons and daughters of the land who have distinguished themselves and contributed towards the development of Zuru Emirate.
We have a mini fishing festival in a village called Ayu. It's a pond, a very huge pond, or a lake if I might call it that. And people go in, and the man who has the biggest catch is also given a prize. That mini fishing festival is also a grand occasion. Ohola is a great festival that can become a tourist attraction and earn revenue for this country if properly harnessed.
Ohola Festival also features warrior display, moving dawa dance, Yadako dance, Dolma dance, among others. Also to entertain the guests are the people using their traditional magical power. During the festival, there is an agricultural show where farmers showcase different variety of cash and food crops, vegetables, fruits, livestock, and locally made farming equipment.
We will remain eternally grateful to President Buhari for assenting to the bill establishing the University of Agriculture. As far as we're concerned, this is the first federal presence we have had for decades of sacrifice, and we are grateful to President Buhari for his sensitivity, for expeditiously assenting to that bill. We know there are many bills that are before him, but when the bill for the establishment of the University of Agriculture Zuru came, which was sponsored by Senator Bala Ibn Allah, the president expeditiously signed it, and the whole of the Zuru people are thanking him for this gesture.
Being an agrarian state, not only Zuru Emirate, that is Kebbi. Kebbi is almost 90% agrarian. So we need investors that will come in to process what we produce here, not just to buy the raw material, but to process it so that we are in a better position, not only to eat it here, but also to export outside.
This is an opportunity for us to showcase our cultural activities to outsiders and some people who don't know about our culture, and taking advantage also to show what we produce here. Our people are farmers and they produce a lot of relevant crops and vegetables within the area here. And this is the essence of it, and this is why we come together.
Our people had this culture that you should never beg for food or even buy food. You should be able to grow what you eat in your own right. So you can only sell. Buying is a taboo. It means you are not man enough to fend for your family. So our culture encourages independence. It encourages self-sufficiency. It encourages valiance, valor. Nobody should look down on you.
Also on display are handcrafts and indigenous food of the Zuru people. Celebrating Ohola Festival has been a splendid experience for the people of Zuru Emirates, Kebbi State.
Cultural activities such as this provide a forum and avenue for friendship, friendliness, and exchange of views. And we should promote anything that will bring about the unification of our various people.
So it is amalgamation and consolidation of culture. It exhibits gratitude to God for good harvest, and then graduation from one stage in life to the other. So I think it symbolizes unity, both unity of cultures, unity of traditions, unity of chiefdoms. I'm very glad I'm associated with the festival, and I have the opportunity to attend the program.
The festival, inherited from generations of yore, is meant to appreciate the gods for bountiful harvest.
The festival is very fantastic, and it's good that we maintain the tradition. You know, before the present emir, it was not like this. Each district organized its own. It was not well organized. But now, after each district organizes its own, then we will select the best, okay, to come and showcase our culture, including the farming. You know, generally we are agrarian, and the emir encourage the culture, tradition, as well as the farming, so that people are self-sufficient in terms of food. There's no less demand in Zuru.
The peaceful coexistence enjoyed by the people of various chiefdoms and even non-indigenous in Zuru Emirate is attributed to the effective functionality of the traditional rulership structure of the emirate, which provide arbitration in case of any form of dispute among the people.
We are talking about local unity. You know, Zulu is so diverse. A lot of people don't know.
outside everybody believe that in Zuru everybody is a Dekakari person, which is not true. We have diverse cultures, diverse tribes, but we live in unity, we live in unison, and we have a lot of Christians and Muslims put together. So normally what we do is we try to go back to those things that put us together, rather than putting those things that keep us apart. So Ohola is the only platform from which we can do that.
We have 4 distinct emirates with cultural values that are different, but we all respect each other. And I'm sure this is what is in the display here. People with different traditions, different culture, but yet united in one purpose and respecting each other.
When different cultures meet, there are differences in them that make them attract to each other and bond. And that's why you find in Zuru we have Yorubas, we have Igbos, we have Urobos, we have TVs, we have almost every nationality in Nigeria resident in Zuru, because our culture accommodates people. Our culture welcomes people and is contributing to the national development and unity of this country.
Ohola Festival provide the platform for cultural integration, reunion, and socialization.
For Kebbi State, we don't forget our culture as well. We align ourselves with our culture, we love our culture, and for Nigeria at large, Nigeria is well known for its diversity. We have over 200 different ethnic languages in Nigeria, and it stems from the cultural heritage of the people. So I would say we harness it better, we make it better, we come together even better, and it will be good.
Ohola now symbolizes the unity of the Zuru people. It symbolizes the rich and cultural heritage of our people, which we are very proud of. It also shows us as a distinct and unique people made by God, special in our own way, to contribute to the development of this nation.
Celebrating culture in its splendor and beauty. This is the heritage of the Zuru people. This is their culture, and they are proud to showcase it.
Hours a day, 7 days a week. You can watch NTA International live on your TV, computer, iPad, tablet and phone. Log on visiontv.co.uk and click on Entertainment, then NTA. You can also download the iOS or Android app on your mobile devices to watch NTA International on the go, anywhere in the world. NTA International. Your window through the world.
done, 24 hours a day. NTA International is with you. In your living room, office, and everywhere, anywhere. We provide a company you desire in terms of balanced and up-to-date news, programs, and the best of entertainment. Tune in to DSTV channel 251, Go TV channel 91, Freeview channel 264, or live streaming via www.visiontv.co.uk. And to watch NTA International in the USA, Canada, and Mexico, use the following satellite parameters. You can also see us on Facebook and YouTube for quality content on the go. NTA International, Africa's window to the world.
This is the network service of the NTA.
A woman's right to choose the number, timing, and spacing of her children is fundamental, and contraception is an integral part of her decision-making. Contraceptives have a proven track record of enhancing the health of women and children, preventing unwanted pregnancy, and reducing the need for abortion. What are the available contraceptive methods? Join us for answers as we shine our spotlight on contraception with the objective of raising awareness of this very important intervention to enable people make informed choices about their sexual and reproductive health. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Health Options. I am Rabi Abdullah. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Health Options, the program that not only tracks government policies on health, but gives you the right information you need to make informed choices about your health. And our focus is contraception. With me to take us through the topic is Dr. Salma Anas, Director of Family Health Department, Federal Ministry of Health. Glad to have you with us, Doc.
Thank you very much, Rabi.
Let's start on a general note now. Contraception. What is the place of contraception in reproductive health?
It's an integral part of the reproductive package. In fact, we say the whole scope of the family life cycle, the reproductive, maternal, newborn, adolescent, and child health, because it has one impact or the other on the whole life cycle of an individual. So as a woman, so looking at it within the scope, even as a girl child, as an adult, adolescent, and also as a girl, there's a time that you will definitely need to control and manage your fertility. Because not only for the positive impact on you as an individual, your health, but also the health of your children that you are bringing to the world, and also the impact on the community and the overall positive impact on socio-economic development.
I think the whole thing around it basically has to do with preventing unwanted pregnancy, it means you need to be ready.
Yes.
Right? So that gets me thinking. What about young adolescents?
So contraception is for everyone that is in need of preventing pregnancy, especially what we call the unwanted pregnancies that are not planned, whether within marriage or outside marriage. So it's for the whole of every woman that is within the reproductive age. But we do know that significant proportion of our married women of reproductive age also are constituted by the adolescent girls. So there should be free access, to information in the first place of the type of contraception you will need for your type, for your style, and that will meet your needs. And also there is need for the commodities to be available and accessible, quality, accessible, and also affordable.
Okay.
And in most cases it must be free, and this is what the Nigerian government is doing, because most of these women are vulnerable women, especially the adolescent girls. They may not be able to afford it, and there are barriers within communities also that deter them from accessing quality services. So government of Nigeria has made it free in the public health facilities so that women can have access to it also.
What constitutes contraception?
So thank you, Rabi. If I might go back and say, what is even contraception? Exactly. We need to know from there. So as we say, contraception is anything that we use to prevent pregnancy, especially unplanned pregnancy. So be it a woman or a man on both sides, you can take measures, deliberate measures to prevent pregnancy, and you have to use what we call the contraceptive products. So these are products that are readily available, and there are also non-products, natural way of doing it. So we're looking at the natural way, the products that you can have access. There are products that could be in form of oral pills, they could be in form of injectables, they could be in form of what we call intrauterine devices, either hormonal or non-hormonal, and they could also be in terms of, you can use like a diaphragm to cover the cervix so that it does not have access to the sperm to produce. And then you can also use like the condoms. So there are several different methods that can suit individual. And there are also the natural methods, that they are not product. And this can also be on both sides of the male and the female. So on the side of the woman, she can decide also to use the timing of her menstrual cycle to determine the timing of her ovulation period. Exactly, every month. So she charts it and then record it, because temperatures fluctuate. She needs to know the right temperature, and with time she will get to know the right temperature that she's ovulating. So these are another way that you can use the calendar, the menstrual cycle, and also the secretion of the cervical also changes. So these are natural methods, even though their efficacy is not as effective as the use of products.
So the ovulation period means she has to stay off sexual activity,
away totally from sexual activity,
in order not to become
if she has to use the condom, at another product again. And then on the side of the men also, they use what they call withdrawal methods, which means they don't ejaculate inside the woman, they have to withdraw and ejaculate outside. So these are all natural methods. And then outside that also, there are methods. The ones I mentioned are temporary reversible methods. So the time that you decide to go back to your fertility, you stop. Then there are permanent methods where you decide forever you don't want to. You want to avoid pregnancy. So these ones are also available methods for women that have had adequate number of children and they don't want to go into that business of reproduction again. So options are available to them and also to men. And these are what we call the sterilization. So for women, it's usually the tubal ligation. You cut the tubes or you tie the tubes so that the eggs does not flow or the sperm does not flow and meet the egg. So these are permanent methods. Some can do it for reasons best known to them, medical indication. Maybe the woman has certain illnesses that she's been advised not to go into a pregnancy again because of her physiology, or some because you have reached the number of children that you want to have. Because without contraception, without intervention, a woman is likely to produce, even if you have 2 years intervention in your life cycle, you can produce more than 30 children
without family planning, and then the body the system that you have cannot cope with that mechanism of production of children. So that is why it becomes critical and a way of life of the family to be able to adopt and look at what options fits them most and the best. Okay, for the natural method, did you mention breastfeeding? So yes, thank you for bringing that up. Very important because it's another natural way, and most women use my favorite. Yes, which we call the lactational amenorrhea. So most women also significantly, when they breastfeed, we say breastfeed exclusively and continue up to 2 years. So throughout the period of their breastfeeding, they don't their menstrual cycle does not resume, and if they are lucky also their ovulation does not resume. So that is another form of natural family planning, and a lot of women do it. It is also effective, but also there are very high failure rate because some ovulation resume without the woman even knowing. But in most women, the lactational amenorrhea is another option because as long as she continues to breastfeed, the hormone like the progesterone continue to suppress, menstrual cycle, as well as in some cases the ovulation. Okay. So these are all natural methods that women have. We also have new products now in the market. So this is what we call the family planning commodities mix. So we have different choices for women and men in the family planning program. The mixed also now we have hormonal intrauterine device. These are hormonal device that you can use, and then they have very less side effects, and they can stay for like 3 to 6 years. And then the no plant where you can have like sticks in the upper arm, and then it can also stay like for 5 to 6 years without returning to fertility, and then you can reverse it when you want. Another mixed method that are available also, which is very effective, especially for women that needs to be empowered so that they have control of their fertility. These are available in the market where you self-administer, just like we self-administer insulin by diabetic patients that are insulin dependent. Those that are insulin, we are used to it in Nigeria. They inject it anytime and they manage their diabetes status. So this is similar to it, and we call it the dexamethasone acetate self-subcute. So the DMP-CSCA subcute, a woman just injected self-administration under the skin. What part of the body? She can administer in the upper arm, on the thigh, at any time, just like you administer the insulin. So you see, it doesn't, she has control over it. She doesn't need to go to the health facility. Once the health worker train her on how to do it, she continue to administer it, and it can take a very long time. What's responsible, in terms of some misconception, regarding the long-term, effects of contraception? So there are lots of misconceptions, there are lots of myths around fertility control, and management. But the efforts that we are putting in, and this is exactly what is tagged this year as the World Breastfeeding Day, is to also create that awareness. Just like what we are observing this year, 26th of September every year is dedicated to observe the World Contraceptive Day. And the purpose is to create awareness, because awareness has been a key area that we are still lagging behind in terms of uptake. Nigeria, we are not where we want to be, but we have made modest progress in the recent years. Since the introduction of the National Family Planning Program by the Federal Government of Nigeria and the Ministry of Health in the early 80s, it was very, very low. Today, our contraceptive, the MCR, that is the modern contraceptive prevalence rate, has continued to grow. In fact, the growth rate is almost at about 3% and above, which shows that we are really making modest progress, even though very slow. If you look at the National Demographic Health Survey that was conducted in 2013 and compared to 2018, you will see there is a modest progress. As of 2018, the modern contraceptive prevalence is about 12%, and the total contraceptive, that is taken all together, including all methods, is almost at 17%. And recently, from recent surveys, we are beginning to see another increase in the contraceptive, almost by about 3% additional to the 12% or 5%. So it's almost at about 17%, and those plus, and also the total is almost 21%. So that shows increment, and that also affects the total fertility in the country.
In 2013, it was 5.7%. Then by 2018, total fertility came down to about 5.3%. And now we are glad to mention also, though we are still planning for the National Demographic Health Survey, but there are other international surveys that are acceptable and endorsed in Nigeria.
So what are they telling?
And they are now telling us that it has even declined to about 4.6%. So which means the uptake of contraception is gradually growing and it's going up, and the growth rate is even up to 3%, just like our population growth rate is 3%. So this is really amazing. And you know, another big booster and a catalyst, we know, was the launch by the president himself of the National Population Policy, which is a policy on the management of our population for sustainable development. So that has also boosted, because it has also, he has made commitments, and Nigerians have also made commitment, and we are part of the global commitment on family planning, which is called the 2030 vision. And the idea is for Nigeria to move from this level to improve our family planning uptake to 27% by 2030 and even beyond. And I'm glad and optimistic to note that the way we are growing, it appears Nigeria is going to achieve 27% by 2030.
Okay, so
if today we are saying we are almost around 21% plus.
How would a woman know what is best, or what method is best for her to adopt?
So these are part of the myths that we are dealing with in the health sector, because what we advise women and men as well is that you should know yourself better. What applies to another woman does not apply to you, because you are totally different. And there are various options that you need to look and take your choice based on your own circumstances. There are women that will take oral contraceptive every day of their lives. For some women, it's not possible because of their nature and makeup. There are women that will prefer to go to injectables just for 3 months. There are women that don't even like injections. It's a nightmare for them to ask them to go for injections. So it's a barrier. So there are options. And so we don't say what goes for this particular woman A also applies for B. And this is where the counseling comes in. Our health workers are well trained on counseling skills. And this is where they sit one-on-one with a client, and that is the woman or couples, and advise them and provide all the options and understand also their physiology, you know, their socio-economic status, you know, their level of education, because all matters. Then it helps them to decide what is the best choice for them. Even the self-administration, we are saying not every woman will be able to administer self-injection, but other women is the best option. Some will go for the no plant, where they put the sticks like about 4 or 5, and off they go for another 5 to 6 years and focus on their livelihoods and activities. So we are aggressively enlightening the communities. We are enlightening the families, and then we are involving a wide range of stakeholders in the community leaders, religious leaders.
I was going to ask that, because I've attended a lot of fora where such issues had come up. You know, we know some faiths don't even accept that.
We work together, we partner with Islamic religious leaders and also the Christian religious leaders on what does the two religions see. And there are different perspectives. Within Christianity, there are different perspectives. So based on their own affiliation and thinking, we work with them and look at it, what works. And some would tell you that for health benefits, you know, to improve the health of the woman, we can adopt breastfeeding, and also to space the children, because you can't have a woman having children every year, every 2 years. It becomes a burden. So it affects also the health of the child, you know, the nutrition of the child, leading to malnutrition, leading to deaths, high infant mortality, and also morbidities, that is sickness. The same thing also applies to the mother, plus other siblings. So when we dialogue with them on their own, they come up with a direction on what best fits into their religious thinking. You know, in Islam, it's there is quotations in the Quran that talks even about breastfeeding up to 2 years, and so you see, family planning is always naturally integrated in it. And then there are a lot of sheikhs and ulamas that have also talked about the use of family planning to improve the health of the mother, to space the children, healthy timing and spacing of pregnancy, and also to improve the well-being of the mother. So one cannot just say one But I'm glad to mention we've worked with different associations and organizations of the faith base, one of which is the Interfaith, to promote family planning awareness and demand creations. We've engaged with several religious leaders also that are currently promoting. But of course, right, we need to do more. We need to do more because family planning, child spacing is not a new thing. It has been there traditionally. Like some Muslim ulamas will tell you, the withdrawal, it has always been there since the time of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He has promoted the withdrawal. And some of them will tell you that the Prophet has also promoted that you should have the number of children that you can take care of, in terms of not just nutrition, but also moral upbringing. So you see, a lot of them are beginning to have a better understanding. But one of the key misconceptions is that a lot of religions where they feel it's a foreign agenda. It is not. It is our own agenda, and it has been there even before the step up of family planning, which started just about 60 decades ago. The family planning commodities, but people have traditionally been using family planning methods, exactly, which has not been so effective. So the world is dynamic, and medicine is the same thing, and science is the same. So it keeps on evolving and coming up with better way of doing things. So today, and research is still ongoing on how do we make family planning products much easier to administer, more acceptable to both women and men. And Nigerian government started providing family planning free since 2011-2012. The federal government of Nigeria started allocating resources for the procurement of family planning through what we call the basket funding. So other donors support us in the basket funding, and Nigeria continue to commit to that up till today. So now what we are seeing with the impact of the COVID pandemic, which has also affected every aspect of our development, including delivery of quality access to family planning commodities, we are now promoting this more of domestic financing to secure procurement of family planning and delivery of the services. So currently we are promoting state governments at the subnational level to take responsibility, and I'm very happy to say about 10 states in Nigeria have shown that commitment. They've already dedicated funding for procurement of family planning commodities for their citizens in the state. So this is I think it's a progress for Nigeria, and it's part of also the achievements of this administration, taking it to the subnational level and having that ownership so that we can meet also the global commitment, because that is the only way, as I always say. This year's theme, it talks about history. Where are we coming from? It also talks about, the significance. Why are we doing it? And courts, and also some lessons learned to improve awareness. So I'm glad to say Nigeria, we have a lot to show in the last decade, what has happened, especially in the last 4 to 5 years. Despite the COVID pandemic, the dwindling resources, we have sustained commitment to the procurement of family planning. We've even had additional commitment from the subnational government for procurement of family planning through the basket funding, which is being anchored by UNFPA to ensure neutrality. And they also have, because they do it globally for different countries, they also are able to have a subsidized pricing to procure for Nigeria.
So what would you like to say to those other states that are yet to do that?
So what we want to say, they should key in to the project, to the program, and ensure that, because that is the way, it's a key game changer in the saving of lives of women and children, and also national development completely, because there is no way you can have attain universal healthcare coverage, which is what we want to attain in Nigeria, without integrating access to family planning as an integral part of your sexual and reproductive health commodities. And I encourage subnational government that are not doing so. It is like you guaranteed by doing that 30% life saving, because 30% of women that are properly using family planning commodities, it's like you have saved 30% of them. Because once someone is not exposed to pregnancies, it's almost 0% her chances of dying from pregnancy-related causes and childbirth. So that is a guarantee, and it's a quick win So you will deal with other issues. And we know scientifically, evidence have shown us from our daily work that exposure to pregnancy is more than 30% cause of death in women. 40% of our adolescent girls that die as a result of pregnancy and childbirth.
On a final note, some people have said contraception kinds of, encourages from promiscuity among young adolescents, unmarried girls, school girls, and all of that. What would you say? What's your
Well, there is nothing, my Rabbi and the audience that are listening to us, that will come, and then even immunization, that will not have its own side effects or overbloom. But I always say, let us do a cost-benefit analysis of whatever intervention we are doing. What is the benefit versus the non-benefit to the general population? And I can comfortably say that the benefit of use of contraception is far outweighs the benefits of non-use, because most women and girls and adolescents will only use contraceptive when they need to prevent pregnancies. The consequences of unwanted pregnancy far outweighs the consequences of not having access to contraceptive, because one, if a girl is in school, it has destroyed her education and her career in the future, and then the complications of even the deliveries that will be associated with it, and then the implications of having a child that you did not plan for far outweighs it, not using for contraceptive. So these are areas that are very dicey still in our communities, especially by community leaders and religious. So what we continue to do is to advocate, to create awareness, let them have a better understanding of situation, of how can we collectively work together to save lives. That is the most important.
Yeah, it's about saving lives, and we should not leave any stone unturned when it comes to contraception. It's about the health of our women and children. On that note, I would like to say thank you to you, Dr. Salma, for making our time to join us on this episode of Health Options.
Thank you very much.
This is where we end this episode of Health Options. A quick reminder that you can go to our YouTube channel to watch the upload of this and other episodes of the program. Email us for your comments and contributions at healthoptions@nta.gov.ng. I am Rabi Abdullah. Thanks for watching. I do hope to see you again.
NTA, you can't be rich.
This is the network service of the NTA.
Is a mustard seed, then nurture it, water it, grow it into that tree in your rainforest. We will be highlighting one of the prevalent social issues in our society. That we love and trust, and by people that are strangers. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, from the heart of the motherland, we bring you our reality with Sky. On today's episode, we're with Mr. Incredible. His name is Emeka Obi. Say hi.
Hi, everybody.
So I will introduce him because he doesn't want to introduce himself. He is the marketing director of Sky Skincare, and the week he joined us, he single-handedly translated my very own skincare company into a household name from the exclusive luxury private brand that it was by introducing branding and repackaging strategies. His resume is vast, his CV expansive. So we're talking gender equalities. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so what is gender equality to you?
Well, gender equality to me means equal rights. That's what you do for Mr. A. That's exactly what you would do for Mrs. B or Miss B.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Is it really a thing? Is it real or is it a myth?
Well, what I know is I don't think it's something that we should be discussing because there will never ever be gender equality.
Yo, are you?
Not something we should be discussing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm about to take the jacket off and start throwing punches.
No, I'm just telling you the truth.
Okay, so why do you say this? I love your candor. I love your honesty. Why do you think that there will be no gender equality?
Because we can never be equal.
Why do you say that?
Okay, like in these parts, this is a male-dominated environment.
Okay.
And so if a female even tries to get a seat at the table, she will never get a seat at the table.
Right.
Right. So if we're talking about gender equality or inequality, who are we fooling? We're never getting there.
Let me say this.
Yeah.
UNICEF says that gender equality means man, woman, boy, girl. They enjoy the same rights, resources, opportunities, and protections.
Okay.
Now, you said something about seat at the table.
Yes.
Why can't I get the same seat that you get?
I can't really explain why, but it's something that we met. It's something that has been in the system for centuries.
Yeah, but change is inevitable. So why can't we change what we met? I agree that we came to see that, you know what, there's no real gender equality, but why can't we change the narrative?
Well, if we have to change the narrative, we'll have to start from the religious institutions. We'll have to consider things like marriage. We'll have to consider things like our cultural background, cultural differences. And by the time you start looking at all those things, you would realize that it's not going to be easy. Something that took centuries, you know? You can't just wake up and just change it.
Okay, so how do we do it? We're not saying that, we're not looking for the easy way out. We're saying, how do we start? How do we change it? Do you even, as a guy, do you even want gender equality? Honestly.
Let me rephrase it. You're asking me whether I'm a feminist.
No, I'm just saying, do you want, let's leave feminism alone.
Yes.
Do you want equality of the sexes? Where your wife, are you married?
Yes, I am.
Yes, you are. So where your wife has equal rights, equal privileges, equal everything as you do. Now, we're not taking away. Wait, answer the question before I say something.
I would want my wife to have equal rights, equal privileges, equal opportunity.
Right.
But at the same time, I would want us to actually consider this. A woman can have equal opportunities, equal rights outside of a marriage. But once you come inside the marriage, then the whole dynamics change.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So, in as much as we're equal in a marriage, the prescribed format is somebody should lead and somebody should support the leading.
Okay.
Let me use